Wanyonyi and Purity Chepkirui won gold medals in their respective races. And here's a recap.
A very determined and confident Amos Serem timed 8 minutes 30.72 seconds, clinching the gold medal in the 3,000-meter steeplechase. Simon Kowet won Kenya a bronze after clocking 8 minutes 34.79 seconds, behind Ethiopian Tadesse Takele, who won silver in 8 minutes 33.15 seconds.
Expected to be the man to win this. He hurdles the water jump as well. Wow, double-footed into the water. Oh, don't celebrate yet, man. You haven't got it yet, or maybe you have. One hurdle to negotiate, takes it okay. All right, we get the message of the World Junior Champion on home soil, and it's a fantastic last lap for Serem. Tremendous running. That could be the future, hurdling water jumps. I think it's slightly lower for juniors, isn't it? So you can take that on to Keeley. He was ready with his 5th gear, but these two guys hit the turbo switch.
Tulikuwa tumepanga na Simon. Kwangu ilikuwa tuchukue na Simon. Boss nilikuwa nimemwambia Simon tungangane. Either nichukue gold ama wewe uchukue gold. But kitu yenye ilikuwa important. Nilikuwa nimemwambia chukua gold nichukue silver. Ama nichukue gold ya achukue silver. Tusiende front.
In 1500 meters women race, Purity Chepkirui claims a gold in 4 minutes 16.07 seconds, while Deribe Welshiji of Ethiopia clocked 4 minutes 16.39 seconds to win silver, while Kenyan sensational Winnie Jamitai settled for bronze. She timed 4 minutes 18.99 seconds.
Purity Chepkirui, maybe she ran that time at altitude. Maybe that was a performance that should be recalibrated in those terms.
Niliomba tu nikasema Mungu anisaidie tu kunipea nguvu ya kumalizia mwisho. Ndio nikaweza sasa kuweka kiki yangu ikanisaidia.
Emmanuel Wanyonyi won a gold in 800 meters after clocking 1 minute 43.76 seconds. He was followed by Mohamed Ali of Algeria, while Noah Kibet won bronze in 1 minute 44.88 seconds.
Wanyonyi swung around the outside, powered away. Dominant victory for Kenya. So first and third, not quite the first and second they had at the Olympics and at the last edition of these championships.
Race ilikuwa poa sana. Ilikuwa competitive sana, but nimefurahi kuwin race, sikuwa natarajia kama nisa win na hiyo time.
Congratulations to our sportsmen and women right there. Now, before we delve on what is happening in matters politics, in not too long, we're going to be bringing you up to speed with what is happening at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, where Kenya has received the Moderna vaccine as Pfizer jab is, to get full approval. We have our reporter, Jacqueline Wambiro, down on ground. And once we have her online, she's going to just bring us up to speed in that with what is happening down there. Remember, the Health Cabinet Secretary, Mutahi Kagwe, is expected to address the media as he receives this consignment. So remain on standby. This is the place where we keep you abreast of what is happening in as far as news. Now, talking about matters politics, Deputy President William Ruto says the nullification of the Building Bridges initiative has presented Kenyans with a perfect opportunity to re-evaluate Kenya's development priorities. The deputy is said to that effect, urging leaders from across the political divide to work together and guide the country back onto its development path.
Deputy President William Ruto and his political allies are still marveling at the defeat of the Building Bridges initiative. The DP and his camp appears rejuvenated and vindicated in their calls on Kenyans to focus on development.
The vaccination program must now take priority over any other program, over any other expenditure, over any other plan.
Pesa ambayo ungetumia kwa masuala ya BBI, nunua vaccine za COVID-19, vaccine milioni 40, no vaccinate kila mtu regardless of the position his or her holds in the society.
We need to know what the roadmap is in getting Kenyans vaccinated so that we can open up our country and let the hustlers be able to get back out there and make a living.
Since the handshake, Ruto and his allies have been reading from a different script, arguing that the BBI was simply an avenue to selfish political ends.
Even those that are planning to bring a parliamentary initiative should know that it is now not possible.
based on the ruling of parliament, of judiciary, and we will be watching you.
That we cannot use the power we have, the authority we have, the positions we have, for selfish reasons to benefit those of us who have already positions to the disadvantage of the millions of citizens who are desperate.
Meanwhile, Amani leader Musalia Mudavadi says the 3 years spent on the push to change the constitution has been a waste of time and resources.
We have, as Kenyans, spent our energy and our resources for the last 3.5 years talking about this thing, refusing to listen to each other, making it look like it's a one-way street, and now the courts have just put a stop to the entire thing.
Mudavadi lauded the Court of Appeal for standing with the Constitution.
The issue of independence of institutions is paramount and must be handled carefully. And I cautioned that if you try to get the executive to appoint an ombudsman to the courts, you'll be interfering with the independence of the court.
Let's focus on 2022 general election. Mambo ya kutuambia BBI imekufa na tunataka Auditor General audit pesa ngapi zimetumika kwa hiyo BBI.
Meanwhile, National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi says the defeat of the BBI is a big win for Kenyans.
That decision is testament of how it can be in life when we nurture our institutions of governance. It may well be that some people might not be happy. Obviously, others are happy. But I think it is a win for Kenya.
Muturi says the defeat of the BBI presents a golden opportunity for Kenyans to engage in progressive public discourse.
Now from matters politics to the fight against COVID-19, and we take you to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport as Kenya receives the Moderna vaccine.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning again. The arrival of the COVID-19 Moderna vaccine today marks yet another important milestone in Kenya's COVID-19 vaccination program. With this donation of 460 doses of Moderna from the United States government, Kenya will now have received a total of 3.6 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Moderna is the second vaccine to be deployed in this country after we started administering AstraZeneca in March this year. This shipment is the first of the 3.5 million doses of vaccines to Kenya by the U.S. government, which includes what we have received, the 1.76 doses, and another 1.76 doses of Pfizer vaccine, and which are scheduled to be delivered in the middle of next month. On behalf of the Ministry of Health and all Kenyans, I sincerely thank the government of the United States for this kind of donation. Further, I extend our thanks to the governments of the United Kingdom, Denmark, France, and Greece, who have so far donated a cumulative total of 1.130 doses of AstraZeneca vaccine. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to highlight a few key points regarding our vaccination program. As you recall, the first phase of our vaccine program that ended in June 2021 was hampered by global supply constraints, which were way beyond our control. Despite that, Kenya is making good and steady progress towards achieving its goal of protecting its citizens against the pandemic. So far, 1.6 million Kenyans have received their first dose, and 780,000 Kenyans are now fully vaccinated. We continue to be encouraged by the increasing uptake of the vaccines in the country, because last week alone, we attained a daily vaccination rate of 40,000 people per day. And on Friday, we hit a record of 70,000 vaccinations in a single day, placing us on course to achieving our target of administering 150,000 doses daily before the end of September. Even as we scale up our vaccination program, we remain focused on the objective of ensuring that we protect those who are at the greatest risk of infection. And these are specifically our frontline workers and those with the highest risk of losing their lives. And these are the elderly from this unpredictable pandemic. It is worth noting, ladies and gentlemen, that the case fatality rate has marginally reduced from 2.1% to 2% following our current vaccination efforts and improved case management of COVID-19, including increased availability of oxygen at our facilities. We hope to reduce this further by maintaining the vaccination efforts and ensuring the availability of oxygen in health facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, analysis of our data has shown that 70% of the 4,497 deaths that have been reported so far are occurring in persons over 58 years of age, followed by those who are over 50 years old. It is therefore disheartening to observe that despite prioritizing the vaccinations of persons above 58 years, who are estimated to be 2.6 million, only 91% are fully vaccinated. It is therefore a matter of great urgency that we get 2.3 million people in this category quickly vaccinated to protect their lives. What the analyzed data tells us is that we must continue to prioritize these groups and to vaccinate them quickly as possible, given the high mortality amongst those people that are aged above 50 and at the risk of severe disease and death among adults with underlying medical conditions. I direct the prioritization of these categories for vaccinations with immediate effect and strongly encourage them to ensure that they are fully vaccinated at the earliest opportunity. To reduce community transmission and ensure that Kenyans attain the herd immunity, which will allow us to be able to go about our normal business, we have revised our deployment plan so that we can vaccinate 10 million Kenyans by the end of this year and another 26 million Kenyans by the end of next year. My ministry, working with the county governments, will undertake the following measures to ensure that we attain these targets. And these are as follows. Number one, we shall gradually increase the number of vaccination posts from the current 800 to 3,000 facilities that will be offering vaccination. Secondly, we are mapping out areas with high population densities and shall be conducting our outreach services in these areas as well. Fourthly, we shall go further to set up our communication and community sensitization campaigns. We are also setting up infrastructure that will ensure the deployment of the Pfizer vaccine when it comes, which requires the ultra cold chain storage, which is -70 degrees centigrade. I'm glad to announce to you today that with support from JICA, this is the Japanese government, we have received 12 to 70 degrees centigrade freezers with a storage capacity of 3 million doses that we shall be going to unveil within the next few days. In addition, we shall be receiving 15 portable freezers from the UPS Foundation that will be used to transport these vaccines at the required temperatures. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are giving the assurance that as a government, we are prepared and ready to receive the Pfizer vaccine, even with its unique requirements, to ensure that we make it available to be used by the people of this country. Ladies and gentlemen, going further, you are all aware that the Ministry of Health, with the support from the ICT Ministry, has locally developed a digital platform, which is the Chanjo KE. And it supports all aspects of the vaccination program, including pre-registration for the first dose and reservation of the second dose. We have embarked on educating Kenyans on the utility of this system. The system has a mobile application module that allows every vaccination center to report to a centralized server. This system allows for pre-registration as well, meaning that you can go ahead and log into the system, choose the vaccination post or vaccination facilities that you opt to get the vaccine, and the date in which you want to be vaccinated, so that when you walk to the facility, they will already have had your data and you'll simply be going ahead to get the vaccination. Our revised deployment plan also takes into consideration the multiple vaccines that we shall be deploying, and we plan to allocate one vaccine type to each vaccination post. So we do not want to have a cross-mix of vaccines within facilities. So those that will be designated to offer Pfizer will offer Pfizer. Those that are designated for Moderna will offer Moderna. Those that are designated for AstraZeneca will get them AstraZeneca, so that you are all able to choose which post to be vaccinated at, and you will get your vaccination and that type of vaccination that you're looking for at a specific vaccine post. Let me take this opportunity, Kenyans, that all the vaccines that we have deployed in Kenya, all of them have been approved by the World Health Organization, that is WHO. And no vaccine, I repeat, no vaccine is superior to the other when it comes to prevention of severe diseases and prevention of death. We shall not be emphasizing on the brand names at all. Rather, we'll ensure that every eligible Kenyan gets vaccinated against COVID-19. My message to Kenyans today is, do not wait for a particular brand of vaccines. The best vaccine is the one which is already in your arm. There is none better than the other. That is what will actually save your life, whatever vaccine you will have. And it is important to note that these vaccines remain effective. All of them remain effective against the Delta virus. So whether you get AstraZeneca or you get Moderna, all of them will protect you against the Delta vaccine variant. Finally, I challenge the county governments to support all the efforts by the national governments by mobilizing communities to get vaccinated. We shall keep updating Kenyans on the progress of each country as we go forward, or rather the progress of each county, so you'll be able to know the vaccination rates in the respective counties across the country as we move forward, as we also take this great opportunity to appreciate the support of friends like the United States of America through their Deputy Ambassador for making it possible for us to be able to protect our people. We are also grateful to our partners who have stood with us, helped us to mobilize, helped us to manage the COVID situation, and these include UNICEF, the WHO, and all others who continue to tirelessly collaborate with the Kenyan government to ensure that we successfully roll out our efforts. And with those remarks, I want to thank you very much and ask you to continue keeping safe, and is signed off by Senator Mutahi Kagwe, who is the Minister in the Ministry of Health. With that, allow me to take the opportunity to invite some of our partners to also just share with us and speak to us regarding this matter this morning. So, Your Excellency, the Deputy Ambassador of the United States, I want to take the opportunity to invite you to speak to our fellow Kenyans.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, PS. I'd like to start by thanking all of our COVAX partners, namely Gavi, WHO, and UNICEF, for bringing this U.S. donation of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine to Kenya. This shipment contains 880,460 Moderna doses. The U.S. government is donating a total of 1.76 million Moderna doses, and we expect the remaining vaccines in September. This donation is part of the Biden-Harris administration's commitment to help combat COVID-19 around the globe, and is based on the strong partnership that the United States and Kenya have had in place for over 60 years. The U.S. government is very pleased to be part of this coordinated global effort to bring life-saving vaccines to the people of Kenya. These are the first Moderna vaccines to arrive in Kenya, and they are the same safe and effective Moderna vaccines which are being used to vaccinate Americans in the United States. Our two governments have worked together on a variety of fronts to curb COVID-19 in Kenya. And these life-saving vaccines will fill an important need at a critical time in Kenya's fight against COVID-19. As the PS said, we likewise would encourage Kenyans to get vaccinated with any and all vaccines that are available. It's important to note that this vaccine donation is in addition to our support to Kenya's COVID-19 response through laboratory testing, through supplies and equipment, training for healthcare workers and other frontline responders, public health messaging, as well as research. The U.S. government will continue to work with the government of Kenya to bring additional life-saving vaccines to Kenya through COVAX, and will continue to do all that we can to build a world that is safer and more secure against the threat of infectious disease. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Balozi. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the head of the UNICEF in Kenya, Ma'am Maniza, my sister Maniza.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, PS, Kas Mwangangi, Dr. Moth, Dr. Kwale, and all the senior officials from the Ministry of Health. Good morning also to the Chargé to the U.S. Embassy, who is here with us, and the team. UNICEF once again is delighted to stand here with the government of Kenya as we have received these additional vaccines for the people of Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, international solidarity is actually critical during a global pandemic. And this is what we're seeing here. We're very grateful to the government of the United States for having donated these vaccines to COVAX for the dose sharing mechanism that we have. And through COVAX, we are able to distribute vaccines to countries all over the world. As was mentioned before, this vaccine, Moderna, is safe. It has great efficiency and is efficacious. And really, we would encourage all Kenyans to take whatever vaccine is nearest to you and available to you. UNICEF will continue to support the logistics and transportation of vaccines. From here, the vaccines will go to the storage and then further on to the regional depots as well. We will continue to support Kenya in the communication around the vaccination and also mobilizing communities to really safely take the vaccination and look after themselves and their communities. So with those few remarks, I want to say thank you again. We are proud to be part of COVAX with WHO, with Gavi, and with CEPI. So hopefully see you soon again as we continue to receive more and more vaccines here in Kenya. Thank you.
Airport there as Kenya receives 880,000 vaccines. That's the Moderna vaccine. Remember, this comes barely a week after government revealed plans that it planned to, procure these more vaccines to just help in the COVID-19 fight. Pfizer there has been told that we're going to be getting that Pfizer vaccine sometime end of September. So, have you gotten your vaccine yet? And those speaking this morning, including PS Mochache, has assured the country and Kenyans in particular that these vaccines have been approved by the WHO. We'll be keeping tabs on what is happening as far as the COVID-19 fight is concerned. Jacqueline Wambiru is going to be giving you details as we proceed in the headlines. Remember, this just comes as, the Ministry of Health revealed that the positivity rate currently stands at 10.7 and 30 people have so far succumbed to this virus for the period dated June, July and August. Globally, 211 million persons across the globe tested positive for COVID-19. So Kenya is not an isolated case. Do what you have to do to ensure that you remain safe. We take a breather. We'll be right back.
Kwani bado unanilaumu bado? Wewe ulikuwa atakaje nikupe hongera?
What? Yaani Kate, wewe ndo sababu kwa nini Badi iko asylum? Nilidhani watoto unawapenda Kate.
Kwa ufupi tuseme wale watoto wananitesa wakiwa pale. Dingo.
Wapi?
Mwanangu Dingo.
Watoto wetu sio?
Umewasahau ama wajitia hamnazo?
Hapana. Tunaenda wapi?
Supposed to be a surprise. Wewe jitayarishe tutoke.
I'm excited. Oh really? Why are you getting worked up? Mbona nikikuuliza kuhusu Kate wao badilika?
Maana sipendi kuuliza maswali about my clients. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Your tone, babe. Umekasirishwa na nini aso?
Tell me, what is it?
I'll go now and see if your brother has come yet.
Why did you break your own promise? Why did you? Tell me why. Tell me why.
Do you know if Poison King dies, we'll never have an antidote, and Fei will die?
Come on, let it go. Listen to what she has to say. Do you know what? He said that cure all blood would never cure fees poison. All my efforts for the past 10 years have been for nothing.
I've burned all of your precious herbs. That's what you deserve for helping her leave.
因为当归入药汤，相思泪许的心头上，捏儿了手在纸上，要饮时。
De una forma diferente, de otro modo.
Daddy!
Max
Daddy!
is in. Why is Max in prison?
Oh, it can't be. Oh, Dad, you have to breathe. Hang on. Someone help, please. I need your help.
Send me the registration, together with all the requirements. I'm interested for my son Lucio to stay in your institution right away. Yes.
Max, I'm sorry, but I can't. Amaya has reasons for not saying anything, and I have to respect that, so please don't insist.
Hench, she's no longer here. No, you're mistaken. She's here. With you.
You're a murderer. Murderer.
No.
Who is it? Murderer.
What?
Murderer.
You're known.
Murderer.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente, respetando tus espacios.
Now, that was just a quick update from where we stand as a country in as far as COVID-19 fight is concerned. Moderna vaccines are already in the country. 880,000 vaccines there received by PS Mochache there. Remember, government has also said that their plans are underway to bring in the Pfizer and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. So it is your responsibility as a Kenyan to ensure that you are vaccinated. And also the take home from this morning's brief there by PS Mochache is that plans are underway to increase the vaccination points from the current 800 to 3,000. So you have no excuse not to get vaccinated. And they've also revealed that whatever vaccination point, whatever vaccine that they receive, if this vaccination center has been offering AstraZeneca, you will find AstraZeneca at that point. When you go to the other point, the one that has been given by Pfizer will be distributing Pfizer as well as Moderna, so that to avoid the cross mix of these particular vaccines there. All of them have been certified by the WHO and are working. We are working at ensuring that we get herd immunity, especially those who are of the age of 50 and above. We'll be keeping tabs on what is happening as far as the COVID-19 fight is concerned. Now we cross over to matters politics and religion, where the church has called for sobriety among Kenyans following Friday's Court of Appeal judgment that has trashed the BBI process. The Anglican Archbishop Jackson Olesepit at the same time urged Kenyans to seek leaders with high integrity and who can make decisions that will positively impact future generations.
2 days after the landmark judgment nullifying the BBI Constitutional Amendment Initiative, Anglican Archbishop Jackson Olesepit noted that poor choice of leaders has led to selfish decisions that affect Kenyans.
When we leave the moral question out of the picture in our decision making and in our advancement, We will make so many mistakes because we become selfish of our own when leaders make decisions without counter-checking whether they have effects for generations to come. And that's the folly of our time. That we make decisions that are so selfish for ourselves and selfish gain without minding about future generations.
His sentiments have been echoed by the Secretary General of the Federation of Evangelical and Indigenous Churches of Kenya, Bishop David Tagana, who urged Kenyans to now focus on nation building and interrogate leaders who are keen on uniting Kenyans.
Important that you realize by the end of the day that we are all Kenyans and we all belong to this nation, and this nation is too big for all of us. We all have something, and if we can team up together and unite once again, not based on the tribes or positions, political position we have taken, but unite and begin to look at leaders as individuals, as we begin to think of who to elect and who to vote for. Let's listen to those leaders.
Uchumi wa nchi hii umeenda chini, watu hawana kazi, biashara imeisha, economy ya nchi hii imeenda chini because ya COVID-19. So hii ni wakati mzuri sasa tuanze kufikiria about the agenda 4 na mambo mengine ambayo yatasaidia Wakenya kuliko kubadilisha katiba ambao hata ikibadilishwa hakuna kitu itatuletea.
Meanwhile, elders drawn from Mandera County have called on residents to respect and support the BBI judgment by the appellate court. The leaders lauded the judge's decision, adding that peace was paramount as the country enters the election period.
Naomba Wakenya wachana mambo ya BBI, tukae tuongoje wakati mwingine tuende kwa election kwa amani.
Si wakazi Mandera si Mandera East, tunaridhika, tumekubali hiyo majaji, tuko right kwa sababu umetetea haki zetu. BBI sisi hatutaki.
To focus on leaders with integrity. Now, over 10,000 households in Mwangaza area of Isiolo want Sando demolished by a private developer who claims to own the land. Now, this sparked protests from the residents who allege they have occupied the land for years and have wondered why they were ambushed at dawn by the developer.
There was drama in Mwangaza area of Isiolo County after irate residents decided to face off with police guarding personnel demolishing houses.
Mimi nimebomolewa nyumba, saa sina nyumba ya kukaa, niko na watoto. Hii dhuluma imekuwa mbaya sana, hii serikali inafaa kuchukua hatua.
Na wazazi wetu wamezikiwa hapa makaburi yako. Sioni maana gani kufanya hivyo. Kama ni tribalism serikali ya county inatumia this time round, serikali kuu tunaomba ingililie, watuambie tutafanya nini.
The residents accuse a private developer of working in cahoots with the police to grab their land. Peter Maina, whose house is one of those that were demolished, said that he had lived in the area for 12 years without fear.
Mtu anakuja hapa anasema hapo na title deed yenye imeanza kuprocessiwa about 6-5 years ago. How is that understandable? You go and cook your own title deeds huko kwa barabara na unakuja kubomoleshia watu.
Sasa tujui anatumia mbinu gani ya kuja kutumomolea kila wakati. Tunashindwa ni nini inaendelea kwa hii mtu.
They set the excavator and truckload on fire before proceeding to barricade the busy Isiolo Meru highway.
Tunataka action immediately. Watu wapanyue mahali watakaa. Na ndio kila siku tunasema title zetu watu wapewe. Unajua kama umpepewa title yako, utajua kama uko pale badala ya kuinvest maisha yako pale yote.
Isiolo Interfaith Network Secretary Bishop Stephen Kalunyo condemned the incident, terming it as inhuman and violation of human rights.
Licha ya kuwa walikuwa wanatimiza jambo la court order, kulikuwa na makosa ambayo tunaona ni tendo ya kukosa ubinadamu, kukosa utu, kuvamia watu wakiwa wamelala usiku pamoja na watoto.
Affected families are pleading for humanitarian assistance even as they count losses.
Na huyu mtu ana complain hapa, anasemanga ni kwake tujawahi muona, na hao askari analetanga hakuna mtu anakujanga mchana ni usiku. Sasa sisi tuko kwa mama yetu, tutaama tuenda wapi?
Well, that is the struggle of those squatters there in Isiolo. Remember, you can get further details on our website. That is www.kbc.co.ke. If you're within the environs, these families are appealing for humanitarian assistance when they deal with that particular issue. Now, talking about alcohol and drug abuse. For the last 21 years, Daniel Ombego from Mamba village in Migori County has struggled with alcoholism. The 38-year-old who has come out seeking for help against alcohol addiction, saying not even a near-death encounter while driving under the influence of alcohol has changed his love for the illicit brew. Ben Chumba shares the narrative of substance abusers and their struggle, recovery, as well as hope to rise above the abuse.
For the last 21 years, Daniel Ombego from Namba village in Migori County has struggled with alcoholism. He even dropped out of school in Standard 6 to venture in boda business due to tough economic times.
Nikiamuka asubuhi pombe ndio naona kwa macho yangu ili niende nitoe logo. Kasi pia siendi. Na hiyo pombe ndio imenibakisha hadi nikapata jali kwa hiyo nini yangu. Kiona hii macho yangu.
Not once, not twice, the 37-year-old Ombego has been involved in near-death encounters while driving under the influence of alcohol. Despite his bad experiences with alcohol, Ombego says his love for illicit brew has not diminished.
Marafiki ndio wenye wanafanya jambo. Ukitoka asubuhi mtu anakuita kuja ni kutolewe loko, unaenda na yeye na kutolewa loko 50, 20, 30. Mara hiyo kuna mene tena nakuja mpe tena ya 50, na akisa pea hiyo pombe una pea blackout hapo chini.
Weekly for Nyango Wino and Nicholas Otieno are some of his friends, but unlike Ombego, Wino and Otieno, who are also his neighbors, have since recovered from alcohol addiction, which they say almost ruined their lives.
Akaniambia onja hii, na ni msichana. Nikaonja hii changa. That night I didn't sleep. Ilikuwa ni kutapika na pain kwa stomach. Asubuhi akaniambia no, hiyo ni kawaida. Ukionja hii kitu hii lazima tena kunywa asubuhi ikupe mutisha kuendelea. They call it kutoa lock.
Ukiangalia macho yangu ya pande hii ni kwa sababu ya pombe. Pombe imenifanya nimelala kwa hospitali kwa different years. Nikiwa ni mwendazimu ninafungwa na makamba ndio nipelekwe hospitali.
Because drug addiction and alcohol addiction affects more than just the addict, Owino was abandoned by wife and children. But the death of his friends following a night of a drinking spree is what changed Owino's life.
Napata message. Rafiki yako mmoja mwenye mlikuwa mnakunywa naye ameaga dunia. The same alcohol that I was taking. At that particular moment, mimi si mimi. Naona nakimbizwa. Niko kwa gorofa juu, na hiyo gorofa ilikuwa ndio gorofa, nataka kuruka chini. Nashikwa na watchman.
Owino currently works as a presenter at a local radio station. Together with Otieno, they have made it a habit walking in drinking dens within their village, advising youth to abstain from alcohol.
Yes, pombe inakupa courage. Lakini siku moja ukifika kwa kiwango yenye nimefika, utakuja gundua hautumii chakula cha mwili. Unatumia kitu ambayo inakuharibu mwili.
Sasa mimi nitamani niombe kwa maombi yangu, nataka niache pombe, nisikunywe pombe.
However, for Ombego, who has not relent in fighting alcohol addiction, he believes that associating with his friends who have since quit drinking maybe, will be of help to him.
Tamani tu nitembe na wao wenye wameacha pombe, niwatembe nao, wanisauri wale waliacha pombe, mimi pia niache pombe, nifanye shughuli zangu, because mimi pia next year kuna mtoto yangu inaenda form 1. Nataka niache pombe nipate pesa, niweke mtoto akienda shule.
Now that narration there by that gentleman as he struggles with matters of alcohol addiction sounds closer to home. If you've ever had that incident where you are, had a little bit too much and you still have to get to your home, well, you understand when he says that driving experience where you actually even negotiate and plead with God to ensure that you get home and you'll never touch that drink again. So if you've ever found yourself in that situation, well, it's the high time you need to stop or take that alcohol or that drink in moderation. Now, crossing over to stories making headlines in the counties, that police in Naivasha are investigating an incident in which a body of a headless man believed to be a casual laborer was found dumped in Mirera Estate. Naivasha OCPD Samuel Wawero confirmed the incidents, adding that they had sought the community's assistance in searching for the head. Details of this and other stories from the county's news roundup.
Fear gripped the residents, majority of whom are flower farm workers, as police and members of the public moved in to search for the missing head. Emotions ran high after the 35-year-old man was identified as John Karanja, who worked as a casual laborer in the sprawling estate. A couple of months back, a woman was found murdered in the area and her legs missing in what is now suspected to be a ritual killing.
Kama uchunguzi inaanza, yaanze tu penye baa ziko hapa penye ilikuwa anafanywa, ilikuwa anakunywa, then from there waendeleze ndio tujue hakika huyu mtu ni akina nani ameua.
Elsewhere, in Kisii County, traders are counting losses after county government demolished kiosks next to the county commissioner's offices. Eateries along Kisii Keumbu Road belonging to the physically challenged persons also suffered the same fate. The ongoing demolitions continue to attract protests from the small businesses operators, was aimed at ridding the town of unplanned structures, according to the municipality.
In total disregard of the existing order by the High Court, which is ruling is pending, which had disturbed all demolitions of kiosks in Kisii town until the case is heard and determined.
Meanwhile, a gaming firm has donated medical equipment worth over 3 million shillings to Nyamira County in the fight against COVID-19. The equipment included personal protective gears, wheelchairs, and ICU beds.
Yes, the donations made by different partners since the case was reported in our county. It has been of great help in subsidizing the efforts made by my government to secure our people.
Back to Naivasha, the number of people seeking their savings from the National Social Security Fund (NSSF) has shot up by over 60% in the last 1 year. This came as it emerged that journalists were among workers who are yet to fully embrace and enroll under various forms of social protection. Finally, 22 Muslim women from slum areas in Nairobi have benefited from a 2.5 million shillings on capital to start small businesses. According to Ali Khalid, the chair for Zakat Kenya, a lot of women from the slum areas are going through a hard economic time amidst the COVID-19 pandemic.
Mitaa yote ya mabanda hapa Nairobi, na watu ambao wanakuwa katika grassroots level. Sasa wale tukiwa tunafanya kazi na wao ndio wanatuchagulia watu ambao hali zao ni nzito kabisa. Manake wao wanaujua kwa ukweli hali za wale watu.
Paka wasai walikuwa wananisaidia. Paka misho wakanitia hii pesa nikachukua. Alhamdulillah, sasa hii pesa nimepatiwa naenda kujifungulia na hoteli. Hata mbeleni nilikuwa nafanya hoteli.
Taking someone's life has become a price that we have become enculturated to actually be willing to pay. Life is still priceless. We cannot be covering stories of headless bodies being dumped left, right, and center. Something needs to be done. We cross over to the sporting arena where Tusker were crowned the 2020-2021 FKF Premier League champions after securing a 2-1 win over Bidco United in their final match of the season at Utalii grounds yesterday. Robert Matano's side finally managed to break Gor Mahia's dominance in the league since 2017.
Tusker registered a 2-1 win over Bidco United to claim the Football Kenya Federation Premier League title on the season's final day at Utalii grounds. The Brewers crowned their campaign with 2 goals scored in the first half by Roger Saloro and Henry Major, while Bidco's David Orem scored the consolation in the second half. The Brewers won a penalty in the 23rd minute just as their rivals looked to have settled into the game. Aloro took the spot kick and made a successful conversion to reward his hard-working teammates with an opener. In the 31st minute, Jimmy Mbugua helped Major find the back of the net 2 minutes later to extend the lead for Tusker.
KCB, who were also title contenders for the better part of the second half of the season, concluded their campaign with a 3-0 win over Nairobi City Stars, while Nzoia Sugar secured a 2-1 win against Gor Mahia. In other results, Bandari won 2-0 over Wazito FC, Ulinzi Stars 2-1 over Posta Rangers, while AFC Leopard lost 2-3 to Kakamega Homeboys. Western Stima 2-4 to Mathare United, and Kariobangi Sharks drew 0-0 with Sofapaka.
Lienda hivyo, and as far as Gor Mahia fan club is concerned, but well, we need to go back to the drawing board and do better. Now, still keeping up with sports is a Faith Kipyegon followed up her impressive win at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games with another stellar performance at the Eugene Diamond League meeting in the United States, winning the 1500 meters race by a far margin. Kipyegon, who stunned Sifan Hassan in the final to take gold in Tokyo, won in 3 minutes and 53 seconds.
Out. Gold medalist in Tokyo just 2 weeks ago is out on her own, coming into the final straight. Let's keep an eye on the clock. The race behind is between Debut Stafford, Hall, the Australian. She's going to be very, very close indeed. Faith Kipyegon coming towards the line. She's going to be just outside. Faith Kipyegon 3:53.22. Another valiant attempt. Lyndon Hall, the Australian record holder, comes home in second place.
Nora Jeruto was also at her very best in the women 3,000 meter steeplechase, clocking 8 minutes 53.65 seconds to win the event ahead of second place Courtney Fredericks of the United States and compatriot Hyvin Kiyeng, who settled for third position. Jeruto shaved 6 seconds off her previous personal best of 8 minutes 59.62 seconds. The Diamond League meetings next head to Lausanne on the 26th of August before Paris, Brussels, Zurich and the final leg in Rabat.
Yes, you had it right there. 1500 meters in 3 minutes and 53 seconds. Congratulations, Faith. You continue doing us proud, as well as the gentlemen and the ladies who participated in the World Under-20 there, putting Kenya once again, as far as athletics is concerned, on the map there. Kenya bagged 8 gold in the just concluded Under-20 that was taking place at the Kasarani Stadium. We take a breather. We'll be right back with more news.
Kwani bado unanilaumu bado? Wewe ulikuwa atakaje nikupe hongera?
What? Yaani Kate, wewe ndo sababu kwa nini Badi iko asylum? Nilidhani watoto unawapenda Kate.
Kwa ufupi tuseme wale watoto wananitesa wakiwa pale. Dingo.
Wapi?
Mwanangu Dingo.
Watoto wetu sio?
Umewasahau ama wajitia mnazo?
Hapana. Tunaenda wapi?
Supposed to be a surprise. Wewe jitayarishe tutoke.
I'm excited. Oh really? Why are you getting worked up? Mbona nikikuuliza kuhusu Kate wao badilika?
Maana sipendi kuuliza maswali about my clients. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Your tone, babe. Umekasirishwa na nini aso? Tell me, what is it?
I'll go now and see if your brother has come yet.
Why did you break your own promise? Why did you? Tell me why. Tell me why.
Do you know if Poison King dies, we'll never have an antidote, and Fei Ye will die?
Come on, let her go. Listen to what she has to say.
Do you know what? He said that cure all blood would never cure Fei's poison. All my efforts for the past 10 years have been for nothing.
I've burned all of your precious herbs. That's what you deserve for helping her leave.
以为当归入药汤，相思泪许的心头上，捏儿了手在纸上，要淋湿。
De una forma differente, de otro modo.
Daddy!
Max
Daddy!
is in. Why is Max in prison?
Oh, it can't be. Oh, Dad, you have to breathe. Hang on. Someone help, please. I need your help.
Send me the registration, together with all the requirements. I'm interested for my son Lucio to stay in your institution right away. Yes.
Max, I'm sorry, but I can't. Amaya has reasons for not saying anything, and I have to respect that, so please don't insist.
Hench, she's no longer here. No, you're mistaken. She's here. With you.
You're a murderer. Murderer. Who is it? Murderer. What? Murderer. Murderer.
De una forma differente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente, respetando tus espacios.
All right, and welcome back. Now let's take a look at some of the stories making headlines in our local dailies. And with me, I have the Star newspaper. And on the front page, new poll. Ruto leads but can't win round one.
Clap.
Ruto wins, leads but can't win round one. That is according to the poll which was carried by Radio Africa Group Limited that shows that DP leads the 2022 race with 43%, Raila at 14%. That is on the front page of the Star newspaper. And there we still have pictures of our Kenya Under-20 championships that went down at the Moi International Sports Center, Kasarani. Kenyans made it to the global standing with a total of 17 medals in total, bringing the country to number one in the championship that ended yesterday. All right. Again, civil servants dash for COVID-19 vaccine amidst threat of salary cuts. Civil servants are in a panic as the 14-day window to have them take the COVID-19 jab ends today, that is on Monday. Public Service PS Mary Kimonye said public servants who would not have received their first jab by deadline risk losing their salaries, benefits and allowances. So it's going to be rush against time for the civil servants to get their vaccination. Another in politics now, Ruto chides Uhuru and Raila after court stops push for change in law. Deputy President William Ruto yesterday took a dig at his boss, President Kenyatta, and ODM leader Raila Odinga following the annulment of the BBI process by the Court of Appeal on Friday. Ruto said that the landmark ruling was a testament that leaders and those in positions of authority cannot use their powers for their selfish gains. We will be discussing this one much more with our analyst later on in the program, the next hour, so you have to stay tuned. And lastly, there's a story here of former Chief of Defense Forces, Julius Karangi, narrating how he flew the late Mzee Kenyatta's body to Nairobi. By then, he was a navigator in the Kenya Air Force based in Isli Air Base. And he just giving the first narration how on that 23rd, actually today, a date like this, in 1978, he was woken by a call to go and bring the body of late Mzee Kenyatta, who died at State House in Mombasa. So it's an interesting read that perhaps you can take a look at that. It's interesting. But Mzee died on 22nd of August in 1978.
All right.
That was a day like yesterday.
You know, we'll be giving you those details in a bit. But first, let me run you through the front page of the Daily Nation. There we go. Quite busy today. A number of stories have been featured here. We start with the two stories here at the top. One involving Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho, given there is a company that is affiliated to him that is set to take over lucrative SGR cargo terminal in Nairobi, a move that has brought about a lot of protest from other firms and companies that were hoping to get this particular deal. We'll be giving you details in a bit. Then we have the story concerning Gisheru after he rejects the judge who will be hearing his ICC case, saying that she may have been involved in the Kenyan cases from way back. And that story has been captured here on the back page of this particular daily, where he of course, he's being accused of bribing 8 key witnesses in the case against the Deputy President William Ruto. But he says, after doing a background check on the judge that was set to hear his case, he established that she was previously employed by the Office of the Prosecutor between 2006 and 2010. And he says that she may have assisted or been involved with the OTP's investigation in the various Kenyan cases that were then under Luis Moreno Ocampo. And he goes on to say that he fears the judge may have a forehand information about the cases facing him due to her previous involvement with the Office of the Prosecutor. So he has expressed his reservation about this particular judge that has been put to hear his case. Then we come to the story that we actually were able to get a live link about the arrival of the Moderna vaccine at the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport earlier on this morning. 880,460 vaccines did arrive at around 6:30 a.m. therein. Of course, this is part of the donation by the U.S., which they had vowed to donate to so many other countries across Africa. But this is part of what we have received, part of the donation that they had committed to. We'll be giving you more details as has been captured on this particular daily. And again, our youngsters are making us proud. Impressive feat, Kenyan youngsters on top of the world after we bagged a total, here they've indicated 16 medals. And of course, from your daily, you did mention they indicated 17. So here they say 16 with 8 gold medals, 1 silver medal and 7 bronze medals. And of course, this is the 4th time Kenya has topped the medal standing, and of course our best performance in the last 10 years. And of course, this given is the 18th edition of this particular World Under-20 Championships. Finally, the battle shifts to Parliament. BBI battle. Now Plan B, we have Ruto and Mudavadi allies demanding refund of cash that was used in the campaign. And on the other hand, MPs that are allied to President Kenyatta are expected to revive the constitutional changes through the House this week. And following the ruling by the Court of Appeal that held the High Court's decision to declaring the BBI as illegal, now they have picked 52 clauses in the BBI proposal, which they say don't require a referendum to come into effect. This means they will bypass a number of requirements from public participation, even the referendum for that matter. It'll just have to go straight to the House. And this is something that MPs that are allied to the president are hoping will actually sail through. We'll be giving you these details in a bit. Doreen.
Right, let me just pick it up from that BBI. Of course, we know that after last week's ruling declaring the BBI unconstitutional by the Court of Appeal, it has elicited mixed reactions. There are those that are praising that ruling, there are those that are criticizing that particular ruling. And right now, the Attorney General, that is Kihara there, is set rather to go to the Supreme Court to appeal that particular ruling. And just to pick a bite from what he's saying here is that the president, just like any other citizen, enjoys civil and political rights, including the right to initiate amendments through a popular initiative. He further on continued to say that he has also raised 5 grounds of appeal, and he feels will overturn the decision, among them basic structure doctrine, presidential immunity, and president's role in law changes. So that is what is coming in just following that particular ruling that happened on Friday. So perhaps the question is, what next if this is what he is planning to appeal that ruling at the Supreme Court there? We also have still around the same breath, just talking about matters BBI, perhaps intertwined with politics, is that Uhuru calls NASA leaders to plot 2022 elections. And this is just apart from crafting an alliance. The Wednesday meeting, which is actually set for this particular week, will also discuss the BBI initiative that was declared unconstitutional by the Court of Appeal. So that is perhaps what is set to form part of the conversations that the president is said to have with the leaders there. And also, when you talk about the COVID-19 vaccine, there had been a lot of conversations surrounding the safety of this vaccine, specifically to pregnant women as well as lactating women. But right now, it's just coming out that pregnant and lactating women are said to get the vaccine. And also what the CS Health, that is Kagwe, had advised facilities is that when these women walk into these facilities, they need to be able to take this particular vaccines, just trying to shy away from that issue of safety. But again, I will give you more details in a short while, perhaps highlighting how this article has well put that into perspective, and perhaps just trying to also give reasons to why it is safe for pregnant women as well as lactating women to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Coming to matters education right now, the CS Education, that is Professor George Magoha, is set to embark on a campaign that is to ensure that all KCPE students join Form 1. This is for those that have not yet joined. Remember that he had mentioned that he really intends and wants to ensure that there's 100% transition, of course, for those that start for their KCP, ensuring that they also get to join Form 1 there. Coming to business, right now it looks like the cost of ugali is set to go up, and this is after over the weekend KEBS banned about 27 brands. This is of inclusive maize flour as well as porridge flour, saying that this particular brands have high levels of aflatoxins. So which brands are this particular, which are of the maize flour as well as the porridge flour? I'll be just telling you about those particular brands, and why KEBS is actually saying that this particular brands have high level of aflatoxin. In a nutshell, that is how the front page of the PD looks like. Right. Now, to just give you a sneak peek of what I have on this copy of the Standard, the front page is talking about matters of the BBI and focusing on what the Deputy President said in regard to that particular judgment that was made. And remember, Friday was quite a day where Kenyans were treated to quite what we term legalese. So there's been a conversation, was it a ruling or a judgment? The right position is that that was a judgment that was delivered on Friday and not a ruling. Remember, this comes at a time when the AG has set to take the BBI appeal to the Supreme Court, citing 3 sticky findings. And according to Attorney General Paul Kihara Kariuki, these areas include, rather what has said is that the Attorney General has not had an occasion to consider and evaluate the detailed reasoning behind the findings that were made by the various court appeal judges. That is a quote in page 5 of the Standard this morning. Now, the AG wants the Apex Court to determine the basic structure doctrine, immunity, and amendment by a popular initiative. if you were following these proceedings on Friday, the issue of the basic structure and immunity, as well as amendments by a popular initiative, there's one of the judges, when he was giving his take, or rather, his judgment over the issue, or rather the appeal, they said that the president cannot be the executive in this matter, cannot be the ones leading a popular initiative. Well, so these are the three sticky findings of that particular judgment that the AG plans to take to the Supreme Court. And this particular outcome of the BBI is going to really shape how we do our politics. And in one of the stories that has been captured here is now Luo Nyanza. Politicians are saying we are now focusing on 2022. That BBI, well, is BBI and the ruling has been made. Now we are focusing on 2022. We'll be giving you the details basically from the front page and to the details of what is happening in the political scene. Remember that particular ruling also has a great impact on some of the bills that have been pending in Parliament, and actually 3 of them are said are likely to suffer. It spells doom. Now this particular bills include a bill sponsored by Ndarago MP Jeremiah Kioni, led Constitutional Implementation Oversight Committee, and West Mugirango MP Vincent Kemose, who have proposals akin to the BBI. What next? And those positions that were said to be created under the BBI if it passed, well, some of the aspirants, including Gati, that is a member of parliament, that is nominated a member of parliament, Denita Gati, has changed her mind over plans to vie for Senate seat following the judgment on BBI by the Court of Appeal on Friday. Ms. Gati represents persons living with disabilities, said she would instead go for the woman representative position. So Victor, even as you tackle matters of iron politics, I think this is something that is likely to come in. So what next? What is the ripple effect of this judgment that was delivered on Friday in regard to matters of succession politics 2022, especially those people who wanted to vie for those seats that were created under this proposed bill that was shot down by the appellate court there on Friday?
Well, we have a lawyer here in studio who is going to help us to understand more on that. And some people are saying that, BBI was going to create more positions. Remember the positions of the Deputy Prime Minister, the Prime Minister, and any other post that were, created or were proposed in the constitutional amendment. So what next for these gentlemen and ladies who are gunning for these positions? We also have a case of the boundaries, remember? The 70 constituencies, that is also water under the bridge, and so much more. So we have a lawyer here in the studio who is going to help us to understand way better. So it's a good discussion. I can assure you, it's going to be a good discussion. But somebody was saying that the people who are supposed to be worried a lot are the people who are gunning for those positions that I've talked about. We have the president, the deputy president, we have got the Prime Minister, his 2 deputies or her 2 deputies, and all other positions. So the question is, what next? What next? That is a discussion that you don't have to miss the next hour.
What next?
What next?
For me, that's a very pertinent question, because remember, this is a document that Onjiko did not fully interact with it. And when we were doing that spot check on Friday in various counties that our reporters were based in, some knew, and their sources of knowledge in regard to this particular proposal under the BBI was the media. They never interacted with the document themselves. So what happened to civic education, public participation? I think that's a question that, Victor, really needs to be addressed when you are taking on our guest this morning, to just understand the legal process and also some of the judgments that were made. And we are all confused. There's someone who actually asked, why did the judges why did they keep on mentioning what has been happening in India? I know they're part of the Commonwealth and such. So we need to understand, because this judgment was made, yes, through the media, mass media, that is TV and radio. But there was a lot of legalese in as far as conversation is concerned. Jade.
You know, this brings me to this particular piece here, Victor, that is also in line with this whole conversation with MPs now hatching a new plan to speed up the 52 BBI clauses. Now they're getting to the nitty-gritties of some of the bits in this proposal, and they have cherry-picked 52 clauses, 5-2. Of the BBI proposal that they argue do not need can actually still pass. Now, they've just highlighted some of them here on this particular daily, and some of those proposals that MPs want to pass through the House, and by doing so, they will bypass the lengthy process of collecting and verification of 1 million signatures. They will also bypass the having the 47 county assemblies debate on these particular proposals, and at least 24 of them having to pass it. Now, they are some of the proposals that they are looking to pass through the House. Number one, increasing constituencies from 290 to 360. The protection of 26 constituencies that did not meet the population criteria in 2012. Nomination of presidential candidates and their running mates to parliament after a general election. Then they also look at elected legislators in counties and national government to be made members of the cabinet. We'll be giving you more details of this, but I don't know if this story has been featured on your paper, Doreen or Regina.
Yeah, actually, it's like I mentioned even in your beginning, highlighting what the front pages of the different dailies had. This is actually what has been highlighted this morning very clearly on the front page of the People Daily, and perhaps even also as Victor will be tackling that conversation going forward. I think maybe also one of the things that perhaps Kenyans would want to understand is that we saw the NASA principal saying that he will not in any way argue or not in any way perhaps want to go forth with even trying to appeal or anything of that sort. But right now, Paul Kihara, the AG, has said that this is what he's going to do. He's going to appeal that particular judgment to the Supreme Court, and he has three various forms or three grounds on appeal. And perhaps I can just mention one. That is the popular initiative, where the AG is saying that there is no provision in the Constitution barring the president from initiating amendments to the Constitution through popular initiative. So he says that there's nowhere in the Constitution where there's that provision. But of course, he had various conversations saying that it was wrong for the president to have initiated this kind of amendment. So perhaps even as trying to raise this question is all about how much as Kenyans or how much as citizens did we even understand this BBI from the word go. And even as we are trying to see all these developments, even as we gear up for 2022 general election, do we really understand what is happening? Do we really understand perhaps these particular rulings or even judgments? What do they mean for you as a Kenyan? What do they mean for me as a Kenyan? So I guess there's a lot of conversation surrounding this particular bill, much as it was shelved by the Court of Appeal and also initially by the High Court, and perhaps also what the AG wants to do next. I really feel there's a lot of conversation and perhaps there's a lot of enlightening that needs to be done just for the Kenyans to understand what exactly this means altogether.
So liwe liwalo tutapata BBI in one
that's why it's important to understand whether ametoa ama hajatoa. It's just
in one
important.
version or the other, one form or the other.
The remaining bit is now political, so either way, the way you've said it, we'll find it somewhere.
You say that either way with such reckless resign, like sasa kambaya mbaya.
It was a political procedure, and therefore we just expect anything to go. Moving to the next step, because when it's go to parliament, it's political now.
Absolutely.
Right.
And now allies of Deputy President William Ruto and Musalia Mudavadi want President Kenyatta to refund them the money that was used.
And now, Vic, as you say, when it goes to parliament, is now political, so that the question perhaps would remain, where's the place of that Wanjiko? Where's the place of Kenya that we keep talking about Wanjiko?
Swali mufti, Kongole kwa Doreen, Kongole.
Where's that place?
Nile wiki, mmesahau Nile wiki.
Oh, we are going
Nile wiki.
Western.
Well, why? This is, today is on a Monday, serious day.
Tumesema tu Nile wiki.
Si Nile wiki, kwani?
Aya basi.
Makofi Nanderemo, good question. What is the place of Wanjiko in all this? We are saying that we are doing this for Wanjiko, but is Wanjiko
involved?
The priority? Is she included when these decisions are being made? And I go back to that particular broadcast. If you missed it, it was uploaded on our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke. We had our reporters stationed in various parts of the country, and from the vox pop that was carried out at random, by the way, a majority of Kenyans have not interacted with this bill, in as much as we were waiting for that judgment on Friday. They do not know, and what they know has been informed by the media. But have we done it justice?
Have we done it justice?
All right. Okay. To some of the stories now. Over 2,000 bullets recovered in Laikipia. Herders had earlier attacked National Police Reserve, and multi-agency teams are investigating the source of more than 2,000 bullets that were recovered from a group of herders in the ongoing operation in Laikipia. The 2,640 bullets were recovered by rangers from the Westgate Community Conservancy, who are part of the larger team in the operation to drive out herders from the private ranch. The case of herders and killings in Laikipia has been ongoing for quite some time. And if you go to that area, most schools are actually closed because of the insecurity.
You know, the ironic bit of all this, and this is something that you actually mentioned, I think it was sometime last year, Regina, whenever we are getting closer and closer to the general elections, what happens? And in specific areas.
Exactly. So remember,
these rustling cases start increasing.
Yeah.
A lot of violence between tribes, and all this is catalyzed, especially so as we gear up towards the general elections.
And Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i was there somehow a month ago and said that they were going to act decisively. Yeah.
When you talk about matters of cattle rustling, there's a whole unit, AP unit, I think, that has been set aside to just follow up on that, because cattle rustling is very lucrative if you look at it in terms of business.
Yeah.
If you look at it in terms
funding
of business, it's actually someone somewhere is making a lot of money in the wrong way and costing people untold misery. People lose their lives, they get maimed and such. And this is something that is ever occurring. And I like, Jane, where you're putting it. Towards the general election, we start seeing pockets of insecurity left, right, and center. And if we dig deeper and investigations are done, you'll find that at some point, there's a political hand in all this. That's when we come to realize, oh, I come from the mountain, oh, so-and-so doesn't come from the mountain. It is always towards the election. That's when we remember how diverse we are. But when we are watching our athletes, we don't know where we came from. But when it comes to our elections, we remember
our tribal boundaries.
Yes, and that is a problem. And one of the things that the BBI sought to bring it is that, and this is a clause that I'd want also to look at, or rather the proposal, is that we do not have a definitive winner per se in these elections, but you have an all-inclusive leadership so that it tries to tamper down this aggression, and such. But why can't we do it at this point? Because the Kenya shilling serves all of us. It's not indiscriminate that this is from Central, this one is from Luo Nyanza. If we suffer inflation, we suffer inflation, all of us. We need to just think, remember that we are one. When we bleed, when we are cut and we bleed, our blood is red. You know, it doesn't change color because of where we come from. And I think it's the high time we started having that conversation. Civic education, what is the media doing to enlighten and empower Wanjiko as we head towards the general election? Because I think this is imperative. The political temperatures right now, it is too hot. It is too hot. It's getting too hot. Doreen.
Just basic civic education, you're really putting it well correct. And I mean, I don't really understand why very serious matters, serious issues always have to be politicized. In just a way, it has to be sort of political. And I think it's just from that kind of analogy, that's where we begin to think, wait, I'm actually Luya, by the way. You know, you're actually Meru. Just around this, normally around this time, the way we're trying to say, but I don't really get it why we have to always politicize serious matters and serious issues. We are clearly just one. We are Kenyan. On the way you're trying to say that we all use the same shilling. When we see our athletes out there, we are all Kenyans. But when we are just about the election, some of those things that really need to bring us together in terms of even choosing and getting leaders, then we realize that, wait a minute, kama si mtu wangu anaingia hapo, then there has to be chaos, there has to be some sort of violence. Really, where is the place again of civic education all the time? Not just when we are about to get into that space of elections, but constantly, continuously, all the time.
Well,
yeah.
It's a cycle that we hope will break. The sooner the better. Now, let me take you to this story here on the back page of the Daily Nation, and it's in regards to missing Form 1 students. So thousands of Form 1s are yet to report to school, and this is after both deadlines for being admitted to school have already passed. So thousands of them have been reported to not have reported to school, and this, of course, is a direct stab towards the 100% transition policy that the government has been trying to implement. This is a huge blow because as per the Ministry of Education, they have reported that some regions have only admitted about 60% of their population of the candidates who sat for the KCPE exam. And as per the last briefing that was a couple of weeks ago, the ministry revealed that 10% of learners had yet to report to school by the initial deadline, which was the 6th of August, prompting them to push it to the 13th. And now that particular percentage represents 117,000 out of the 1.1 million candidates who sat for their KCPE exams. And after a spot check by this particular daily, they reported that many learners that were admitted to extra county schools have the national schools and extra county schools have recorded extremely high admissions as opposed to other levels of schools. And this, of course, is something that the ministry is looking into, trying to understand why so many schools have not taken up the Form 1s that were admitted there. And Professor Magoha will actually kickstart this process today in Mombasa, because the coast region is one of the worst affected when it comes to students who have not reported to Form 1. So he will be doing that spot check and round up all the Form 1s that are yet to report to school.
All right. So there's a story here, and I know this is quite familiar. So a family has lost more than 50 goats and sheep to the 5 marauding leopards in the Olobelilel area of Kajiado Central. The attack that happened on Saturday evening is estimated to have cost the family more than 500,000 shillings. The leopards also ate the udders of some sheep and goats. But this is the story. The owner, retired Principal Chief Joshua Kasaro, told the newspaper here that after the attack, he called Kenya Wildlife Service scouts, but was told they lacked fuel for their vehicles.
Tukifunga hii maneno, we always talk about wildlife-human conflict.
They lacked fuel.
But when you look at where Kajiado is, that is an animal transport corridor. So I think we are the ones invading into their territory. So something needs to be done. Well, as we bring in the headlines to a close, just to remind you that Moderna vaccine is in the country. 880,000 doses have arrived this morning, and government intends to increase its capacity as far as the vaccination exercise is concerned. Currently, we have 800 outlets that are offering the vaccination of the AstraZeneca. Government intends to increase this to 3,000, and it P.S. Muchache, just taking what she had to say when she was addressing the media at JKI this morning, she said that the facilities that have been rolling out the AstraZeneca vaccination will continue with the AstraZeneca. Well, the others, if it's Moderna, if it's Pfizer, if it's Johnson & Johnson, that is it. Trying not to just cross-mix these vaccines. However, all these vaccines that we are receiving have been certified by the WHO. We'll be keeping tabs on that. Remember, further details are available on our website at www.kbc.co.ke. But how are our roads looking like this Monday morning? Traffic Marshal A1, Doreen, to you.
All right, so this morning on the roads, we'll be focusing, as I've mentioned earlier, on what is happening along Ngong Road. Now, this is simply because at least the first and the second phase of that particular route is already complete in terms of construction and already opened up to the public. The only remaining parts on both phase 1 and phase 2 of Ngong Road is the installation of the footbridges, the 3 of them. However, the different areas have already been identified for where those bridges are going to be installed. It's just that installation part is what is still remaining. On the third phase of that particular route, there's still a bit of ongoing construction there, especially when it comes to an unmotorized transport system. So this morning, we will just check the traffic flow therein and also try to see how that progress is coming along. And perhaps you can begin from the city mortuary roundabout. Remember that phase 1 actually of this particular route, phase 1 begins from the Kenya National Library all the way to Prestige Plaza. Phase 2 from Prestige to areas around that should be Dagoretti, then Dagoretti all the way to Karen. So this is how the 3 phases have been designated, and like I mentioned, phase 1 and 2 is already complete in terms of that expansion when it comes to the construction, as well as also an unmotorized transport system is put in place. So what we still have remaining is the 3 footbridges, one at Kenyatta Hospital, one at Coptic. Those are the at least areas where it has already been designated for that installation. And this is how the roundabout is looking like. I mean, the typical way that you'd expect to see major roundabouts to be looking like, at least this early morning. This is just how it is looking like as of now. Traffic really building up around that particular roundabout as you enjoy into Ngong Road, and also as you come from areas around Kenyatta, branching off through Mbagathi, as well as on that section of Valley Road. So clearly from just those roads that I'm mentioning, that just goes to show you that this is one of those major roundabouts there. And clearly nothing is changing throughout the entire roundabout. Still traffic being witnessed, especially heavy kind of traffic on that section as you leave areas of Kenyatta Hospital, as well as you get to branch off through Mbagathi. Just around these 2 sections is where there's really heavy kind of traffic moving at a very slow pace. As you leave Ngong Road, coming through V Road, not so bad much as it's beginning to slightly build up there. Around areas of Coptic, one of those areas where we expect that footbridge to be installed the moment they will begin on that. One of those areas that there's always heavy kind of traffic, given it's just next to a hospital. I mean, also next to a bus terminus. So clearly, again, that just going by that is one of those reasons that you'd expect to see heavy kind of traffic, and that is the same situation. In fact, just around that area, not moving at all at a parking lot. That is how it is looking like, but it's just specific to that lane that is coming to the city center. So if you are living areas perhaps around Mbagathi, Kenyatta, perhaps your workstation is along areas of Ngong Road thereabout, not so bad on that particular lane, moving at a very swift pace there. On the other section, as you come to the city centers, just where there's really heavy kind of traffic, the same is also being witnessed around Prestige Plaza, one of those areas where oftentimes in this early morning hour, this is basically what you would see. I mean, it's around the Prestige Plaza, so obviously it's around a mall, next to a mall rather, next to a bus terminus. So clearly, again, one of those major reasons why you would see heavy kind of traffic there. But at least on the other section or on the other lane, as you also, like I mentioned, leaving city center, going all the way to areas around Ngong, at least in that section, not bad at all, moving at a very swift pace. So again, it simply means that perhaps if you're leaving city center intending to come to Ngong Road, this is clearly the best time for you to do that. However, if you're leaving those sides coming to the city center, then I can tell you for sure that around this time, you'd perhaps have to make do with that traffic. But again, remember, I told you there's still some ongoing roadworks around the phase 3 of this particular route, because this traffic actually begins all the way from that particular section. So perhaps you might not need to look at any alternative routes per se if you're coming to city center via Ngong Road, because just around those sections here and there, which I've just mentioned, is just where there's really heavy kind of traffic. On the other side, no traffic at all, at least moving at a very swift pace. So perhaps what we will do on our next link-up segment, we'll try to look at various alternative routes for those plying that particular route this morning, and also take you through perhaps that phase 3 of the construction of Ngong Road. Try to see how it's coming along. Remember that they had mentioned that perhaps by February of this year it was supposed to be complete. That didn't quite happen. So also I'll be telling you why it has stalled a bit, what has made that project to stall a bit, and perhaps when it's expected to be complete in terms of construction and altogether opened up to the public. But right now at 10 minutes past 8, this is how it's looking like on the roads.
forma diferente, de otro modo.
Daddy!
Max
Daddy!
is in. Why is Max in prison?
Oh, it can't be. Oh, Dad, you have to breathe. Hang on. Someone help, please. I need your help.
Send me the registration, together with all the requirements. I'm interested for my son Lucio to stay in your institution right away. Yes.
Max, I'm sorry, but I can't. Amaya has reasons for not saying anything, and I have to respect that, so please don't insist.
Hench, she's no longer here. No, you're mistaken. She's here. With you.
You're a murderer. Murderer.
No.
Who is it?
Murderer.
What?
Murderer.
Alone.
Murderer. De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
Respetando tus espacios.
Get the VIP access to the best shows on KBC Channel 1. We have something different, something special to spice you up. Get ready for new, exciting and captivating dramas. Movies.
I love the smell.
Comedy.
I went to the popos. Huh?
Drama.
Did he assault the queen in my house, in my presence?
News, sports and so much more. Do the things that make you happy on KBC Channel 1.
Ili kupata skiza tune ya Tabasamu ni bure. Bonyeza *811*965#.
Maneno matamu humfanya mtu atabasamu ghafla, na pia mawazo mema huzifanya hali zitabasamu mbele yako ghafla. Hali ngumu zikawa nyepesi, hali tete zikatamanika. Ila unaponuna pia hali zinanuna. Hebu jifunze kutabasamu.
Kupata skiza tune ya Tabasamu ni bure. Bonyeza *811*965#. *811*965#.
Yani kwani bado unanilaumu bado? Wewe ulikuwa atakaje nikupe hongera?
What? Yani Kate, wewe ndo sababu kwa nini Badi iko asylum? Nilidhani watoto unawapenda Kate.
Kwa ufupi tuseme wale watu wana mtoto wakiwa pale.
Dingo.
Wapi?
Mwanangu Dingo.
Watoto wetu sio?
Umewasahau ama wajitia mnazo?
Hapana. Tunaenda wapi?
Supposed to be a surprise. Wewe jitayarishe tutoke.
I'm excited. Oh really? Why are you getting worked up? Mbona nikikuuliza kuhusu Kate wao badilika?
Maana sipendi kuuliza maswali about my clients. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Your tone, babe. Umekasirishwa na nini aso?
Tell me, what is it?
I'll go now and see if your brother has come yet.
Why did you break your own promise? Why did you? Tell me why. Tell me why.
Do you know if Poison King dies, we'll never have an antidote, and Fei will die?
Come on, let her go. Listen to what she has to say.
Do you know what? He said that cure all blood would never cure Fei's poison. All my efforts for the past 10 years have been for nothing.
I've burned all of your precious herbs. That's what you deserve for helping her leave.
回荡归入药汤，相思泪许的心头上，叶儿了手在这。
Yani kwani bado unanilaumu bado? Wewe ulikuwa atakaje nikupe hongera?
What? Yani Kate, wewe ndo sababu kwa nini badi iko asylum. Nilidhani watoto unawapenda Kate.
Kwa ufupi tuseme wale watu wanamtatiza wakiwa pale.
Dingo.
Wapi?
Mwanangu Dingo.
Watoto wetu sio?
Umewasahau ama wajitia hamnazo?
Hapana. Tunaenda wapi?
Supposed to be a surprise. Wewe jitayarishe tutoke.
I'm excited. Oh really? Why are you getting worked up? Mbona nikikuuliza kuhusu Kate wao badilika?
Maana sipendi kuuliza maswali about my clients. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Your tone, babe. Umekasirishwa na nini aswa?
Tell me, what is it?
I'll go now and see if your brother has come yet.
Why did you break your own promise? Why did you? Tell me why. Tell me why.
Do you know if Poison King dies, we'll never have an antidote? And Fei will die?
Come on, let her go. Listen to what she has to say.
Do you know what? He said that cure all blood would never cure Fei's poison. All my efforts for the past 10 years have been for nothing.
I've burned all of your precious herbs. That's what you deserve for helping her leave.
以为当归入药汤，相思泪许的心头上，叶儿了手在纸上，要一世。
Quiero amarte de una forma diferente, de otro modo.
Daddy!
Max
Daddy!
is in. Why is Max in prison?
Oh, it can't be. Oh, Dad, you have to breathe. Hang on. Someone help, please. I need your help.
Send me the registration, together with all the requirements. I'm interested for my son Lucio to stay in your institution right away. Yes.
Max, I'm sorry, but I can't. Amaya has reasons for not saying anything, and I have to respect that, so please don't insist.
Hench, she's no longer here. No, you're mistaken. She's here. With you.
You're a murderer. Murderer. Who is it? Murderer. What? Murderer. Murderer.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
Respetando tus espacios.
And welcome back. We are glad you're still with us here on KBC Channel 1. Now let's flip pages and go into the eye on politics. Being a Monday, a lot happened over the past few days, and we just need to get into in-depth and understand what really happened, what it portends, and for you to understand really what we should look forward to. And in studio, I'm joined by Kenneth Amondi, who is an advocate of the High Court of the Republic of Kenya. And welcome to the program, Wakili.
Asante.
Karibu sana. And of course, joined by one gentleman, Dr. Rotich.
Thank you, sir.
He's disappeared. He'll tell us where he disappeared to, and he's back. Dr. welcome.
Good morning, Kenya.
Good morning.
I am so grateful that I'm back and in high spirit.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank God that I'm meeting my new friend, the advocate of the High Court.
Yes. Sure.
And welcome, my friend. And thank you, Lo. We are together.
We are together. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming to the show. I think we should just start it where we should. And let me go straight to you, Wakili. We all know what happened. Perhaps for the benefit of the doubt, for those people who do not understand what really happened in court on Friday. the BBI, the cat is already out of the bag, and we have no any other option right now left as far as courts are concerned, though we hear that the AG is contemplating to go to the Supreme Court. Perhaps from your own understanding, what do you take out of that court ruling?
Let me start by saying that I can at least give 4 propositions in respect of the BBI judgment on Friday. First, let me say that it was a monumental decision, that is from a jurisprudence aspect of things, in the sense that the Court of Appeal laid down the foundations in terms of how to go about handling referendums. I want us Kenyans to remember that the Kenyan judiciary has been in the forefront in terms of laying down formulas as we speak of how to conduct presidential elections. You remember the Maraga decision 2017, which was monumental. We have done the same thing again in respect to the holding of a referendum. Of course, there's also the fact that the decision buttressed the independence of our judiciary, so that to that extent, that would be a win-win situation to all Kenyans. Secondly, let me also say that that particular decision, in a sense, had a way, in a sense, it vindicated to some extent the president. I'm saying this looking at the decision of the High Court, because the High Court decision indicted the president insofar as, you know, the procedure that was followed in conducting the referendum, so that the general principle that came out was that, look, the president acted in good faith, but of course there was a problem insofar as the process is concerned. Thirdly, the next issue that comes about is in respect to the position of the Attorney General. I think we'll
discuss in a short while. But let me just bring you in, Dr. Did you expect that ruling?
Considering although the distance where we have come from and the challenges that we've encountered all along, anybody could guess that this thing was not heading for any good direction. Looking by it, the whole thing was supposed to be all-inclusive. The whole thing was supposed to be started down-up. It was not supposed to be top-down. So those are some of the things that you are not required to be a astute lawyer to know, or a constitutional lawyer to know what was really happening. Even a layman could tell the direction of things the way they have happened now. So it never came as a surprise to me. But there are a lot of things that we have learned about the independence of our judiciary, and then the enlightenment that the Kenyans are at the moment, which of course it has really contributed a lot, because the Kenyans of the yesteryears, the last election, are not the Kenyans that we are experiencing today. They are a very enlightened lot, and they were following every bit of what the judiciary was actually doing. They were also following every bit of what, how the whole process of the constitution amendment making. Kenyans have been just breezed with the information that was happening. So the expectation that Kenyans had and the direction where the verdict has gone to, is something that many Kenyans are not surprised.
Wakili, one thing that stood out was the public participation. And it has been contentious ever since the whole process started. But then now the judges came and said, you know what, there was no proper public participation. What do you understand by public participation? Because to Kenyans, the whole document went to the county assemblies, it went to parliament, and now went to the president, and finally, here we are today.
Let me start by saying that when you talk of public participation in respect to carrying out constitutional amendments that touch on fundamental aspects of the Constitution that the judges refer to as the basic structure, then the aspect of participation of the public comes to the core. And that therefore brings us to the point of departure between the two strands in the referendum debate. There is that group whose argument was that, look, whatever it is, it shall be presented to the people in a referendum where they shall have the option of either voting for or against. But then there is also this other group, and that brings in the public the participatory theory aspect of it, that argued that even before you present this document to the public for purposes of voting, shouldn't it be that the proposal that we have ought to have incorporated the views of the wananchi? And when you talk of incorporation of the views of the wananchi, when you talk of public participation, then we go back to the phrase that was coined, the phrase of the Constituent Assembly, a phrase that was coined right from the days of, I think, the 2004 Njoya decision on the referendum. In which case, we realize, and of course that is a law that the Court of Appeal was established by the High Court and reinforced by the Court of Appeal, that the nature of participation that ought to be inculcated involves, amongst others, you have civic education. There must be civic education. And then, the public must be engaged in terms of debating these particular proposals, where their issues will also be heard, will also be incorporated in the final document, which would thereafter be subjected to a referendum. So you find that it was not clearly demonstrated that that aspect was done insofar as the proposals in the BBI document were concerned. I mean, just on a flip side, a replica of what public participation is and which the court meant can be captured from what happened pre-Bomas draft. And you understand that, there was that aspect of constituent assemblies in the ground. They were all inclusive entities that included people from, broad spectrum. You had the youth, you had the elderly, you had the disabled, all these fellas, and they would debate the document. They would then, for example, and I think, and that's what the court meant, the people would be asked, if you are talking of this body that was meant to oversight the judiciary, the office of the ombudsman, would you be, this is what the proposal intends. Would you be comfortable with the same? Would it amount to compromising the independence of the judiciary, so that by the time such a document is brought to the referendum, it can be properly said that yes.
Dr. What's your take on that?
I think what we must look at is in any civilized nation or people who are in the democracy, the constitutional changes should emanate from the felt needs of the common mwananchi. I mean, it has to emanate from the people themselves. This is what we feel we should change in our constitution. This is what we feel we have to see in our country.
But there has to be an initiator.
The initiator, you see, what has actually killed the whole process is where the initiation actually, where it took up. It started from up down. And to me, I don't know, I don't really over-focus on where it started, but people must have, should have owned it. It should have owned the whole process. You saw, Mr. Olo, the time when we were discussing here some time back, the ownership seems to have been taken over by the executives and those who matters in this country. It started from above, and it was moved by the same people. So that you can remember the time when the views were being given. Right Honorable Raila himself came up and said, no, the time is already over, we must move on. So receiving information from the public was curtailed at some position, whereby some people seem to have been chasing up to give their views instead of really people being given time to give their views. And of course, even those who were saying that it was time barred, they also had reasons that this thing has been dragging on for the last 2 years. We have had enough time to do that. And those who are actually not seeing the reason why more views were to be accommodated would give that we have given you more time. They were also reasoning on their part. But in this case, Olo, when you talk about people's participation, as I have explained, it should have emanated from the felt needs of the ground man, the Wanjiku, on the ground, and it should have been driven by them. So the team that really carried out the collection of the views again, they were supposed to have been placed everywhere in this country, because the whole thing seems to have been hurried. Maybe starting from Kisii, it came to where, and of course within a period of 1 month, the whole Kenya was actually covered, save Nakuru, which of course the last minutes it was overtaken by the events. So in this case, we had we had the pastoralists who came later crying that they never gave their views. You had the churches who came later, they were complaining that they never gave their views, and so many other groups that were, who were complaining. You have heard Mudavadi say that this thing, if it was all inclusive, it was possible that it was going to have a breakthrough. That is, in his view again, the whole process was not inclusive. So in this case, although PPI died in its natural form, the way it started is the way it died. And if these people will take a back seat and come up again with the same views, I'm not seeing the problem of the same process.
That sounds so harsh on the initiators of the same.
No, I'm telling you the truth. Look at now what's happening. The HE is actually thinking about going back to the Supreme Court.
Right.
And in this case, unajua hasira hazara. The back stop at him. All these processes was done in his presence. He's supposed to have guided the whole process as a legal advisor of the president or the government. So in this case, it is like anaona hii ni aibu, imefanyika na imefanyika tena. So I would wish that he sits back kidogo, let this process take a natural form instead of confronting something that is already in the public domain, and they believe that the public knows that this thing is already dead.
Wakili, that sounds so harsh, the way he's putting it, that the BBI process started, and no sooner had it started than it died.
That is a possibility.
Let me put it like this, and that's why I really appreciate the position that was taken by the judges. The fact that we do not have a proper legal framework, as substantive law in terms of how to carry out, or rather how to hold referendums, would then, can be said to be one of the causes of the quagmire in which we find ourselves in. Because as a matter of fact, you cannot really say that all the proposals within the BBI document were anti-Wanjiku. In fact, 95% of the proposals are pro-Wanjiku. Where I have an issue with, what I would call those proposals that touch on the basic structure, and if I can basically mention two. On the independence of the judiciary, where you are saying that you want to bring the office of the ombudsman to oversight the judiciary, and then of course secondly on the purported proposals and direction to the IEBC in terms of how they ought to do their work. Of course, let us not forget that per se, the fact of increment in the number of constituencies would actually amount to more representation and further, in a way, decentralization even of funds, because more constituencies come with more funds. So those are pro-people initiative. But if you look at it from a fundamental aspect in terms of the basic structure, in terms of the fact that we need to protect our constitutional commissions, then there you find it's a problem. So that I would say that the fact that we lacked a clear law in terms of how to carry out our referendums was the major cause of the problem. And it's good that as we stand, the High Court, and as confirmed further by the Court of Appeal, has actually laid down a formula which must now be taken as the way forward.
In this case, who are the losers now?
From where I see it, I think the losers, it's three-way. wananchi, the Wanjiku, in a way, because some of the proposals in the BBI, for example, the one on increment in disbursement to the counties, in as much as other people may say that, look, those are things that can still be done. I mean, if the executive are really keen on the same. But the mere fact that the same would be anchored on the constitution, as a matter of fact, immediately after the referendum, and now that is not a guarantee, then it means wananchi are the losers. Of course, as a lawyer, and I want to repeat, I think the Attorney General of Kenya is in a very precarious position. I mean, from where he sits, because my understanding is that the moment he read the mind of the president, that the president was keen in ensuring that, this, the BBI ought to form part and parcel of his legacy projects, then it behoved the Attorney General to ensure that he shepherded this process in a way that in the end of the day, it had to reach a conclusion. And let me tell you, and in this I have in mind, I saw that the Attorney General intends to appeal, to the Supreme Court, and more so on the aspect of the IEBC. Although let me tell you, there is a crisis that is unfolding pursuant to that judgment, and precisely on the question of the IEBC. Because if, and of course that was a finding, and properly so, from where I sit, that the constitution was not properly constituted in terms of quorum, so that it could not make such fundamental policy issues. And then you realize that as it stands, I am aware that the Commission has already initiated the process, for example, of procurement of the KM's kits, which was a core thing, if you can remember, in the nullified presidential election 2017. Now, don't you therefore see a scenario where, come the presidential election 2022, this is bound to be another key issue? I mean, in terms of if a presidential, if someone was to lodge a petition, on the premises that the IEBC as constituted then...
Yes, they're not properly constituted. You can answer that. You can answer that briefly. But Dr. what...
I think, although I can categorically say we have lost greatly as a country. But the losses that are putting before us is the loss of funds. We spent a lot of money to fund a project that is dead. Number two, we have also lost our most precious time, which we would have used to do other things that would have made this country better than where we are today. Concentrating on something that has not bared any fruits. We have also lost as a country because of the greed. We were so greedy to be fast, greedy to own it, greedy to believe that others are less important than others. Had we agreed, I told you, Olo, if you can remember our previous discussion, is that I wish Kenyans could listen, and we listen to every Kenyan. Are you getting what I'm saying? So that we would have drawn up a constitution that was all inclusive, a constitution that would have befitted every citizen of this country, a constitution that would have accepted without any contestation. I think you can remember what I said, that we were supposed to have gone to the referendum, not as people who are divided, but as people who are united in purpose and in objective to accomplish and to bring about the constitution that was acceptable across the board. But some never believed.
Are you saying that the money was, the funds were misused because the BBI has not reached its final conclusion? What if it passed?
Let me tell you, Olo, before you do any project, you must plan for it. You must do a budget. And the plan should show, I mean, the plan itself should show even the results. It should show the outcome before you implement it. This was a national project. So in this case, I don't blame the project. I blame those who are managing the project. Because if the project is not managed and managed well, the outcome of that project will be very poor. it will be poor results. So in this case, the constitution, as my brother said, I mean the proposal for amendment, there are a number of views which were very, very, very wonderful. It would have changed actually the terrain of the welfare of our people. But look, we could not achieve because of greedy. I felt I should be the first to pronounce. I felt I should be the first to give my views. I felt I should be the only one who can give views and the rest no. That is not the way Kenyans. In fact, the courts of Kenyans have actually, they have proven us and that we were wrong in the process. We were wrong. Yes, the initiative, in fact, I don't look at the law, how it started. I'm not focusing on that. Whether it started from up, whether it started from down, but what I am really looking at is how we fail to have all Kenyans on board in the decision making.
Is it that the issue of inclusivity he's talking about, that Kenyans were not fully included in the whole process, Wakili?
I don't know if I can really call it inclusivity, but the main thing, like the court established, was the fact of just ensuring that whatever proposals they are, let them be subjected first to the people in the ground through the constituent assembly, so that they could also give their views for or against and probably even present counter proposals, so that the final document that is presented can then be said to be an all-inclusive process. That's what I got the court to be saying. And I know that's also what happened under the Bomas draft. So there was a precedent that could have been followed before we had this document presented to, the document finally presented. Yeah. And you see, it doesn't matter as to whether, even if, because I know there's also the aspect of the political class, because remember that constitutional making essentially is a political process. So that now we had different political interest at play. There were some who felt that, this is something which was tailored towards, assisting some wing towards the election 2022 and such like things. And those are always bound to be there, because referendums in the end of the day are about yes or no. You win or you lose. So it has to be a contestation in the end of the day. It can't be uniform. If it's uniform, then it's not a referendum. But what is more fundamental is the process. There has to be a semblance of engagement. I think that is what I got the court to be saying. It must be demonstrated that in one way or another, the people, and especially the people in the ground, were so much involved and engaged in this thing, and especially when the final result, or rather some of the proposals, include what would be an assault on the basic structure. Yes.
And that issue of basic structure was deeply dealt on by all the judges. They dwelt on the basic structure. Dr. Briefly, before we go on a break, who are the losers in this particular situation, and the winners?
I think we have lost as a country. When you talk about winners and losers, I don't see winners. I don't see winners. Why I'm not seeing winners is that a constitution a constitutional amendment which was flawed has not succeeded. Yet we have spent a lot of money, we have spent a lot of time, we have spent a lot of energy, we have wasted a lot. So in this case, we have lost as a country a very precious thing, to change the constitution that would have befitted Kenyans. So it was a lost opportunity, which we have lost as a country. We cannot please one another that there is a win-win. There is nothing called win. We have lost the money, we have lost the time, we even lost the energy. So in this case, we have wasted our time. Much of what we were supposed to have achieved, spending 16 billion in in something that has not paid fruits. It is something that we must feel ashamed as a country.
Let's take a break, but when we come back, Wakili, the AG is contemplating to go to the Supreme Court to challenge. One, he's saying that the president, as a civil servant and as a citizen, on his own behalf, can initiate a process to amend the constitution. How true is that? And probably, what are the chances of the case sailing at the Supreme Court? Let's deal with that when we come back after this break. This is Iron Politics here on KBC Channel 1.
Tell me, what is it?
I'll go now and see if your brother has come yet.
Why did you break your own promise? Why did you? Tell me why.
Do you know if poison...
Just to say. Do you know what? He said that cure all blood would never cure phase poison. All my efforts for the past 10 years have been for nothing.
I've burned all of your precious herbs. That's what you deserve for helping her leave.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo.
Daddy!
Max
Daddy!
is in. Why is Max in prison?
Oh, it can't be. Oh, Dad, you have to breathe. Hang on. Someone help, please. I need your help.
I'm interested for my son Lucio to stay in your institution right away. Yes.
Max, I'm sorry, but I can't. Amaya has reasons for not saying anything, and I have to respect that, so please don't insist.
Hench, she's no longer here. No, you're mistaken. She's here. With you.
You're a murderer. Murderer.
Who is it?
Murderer.
What?
Murderer. Murderer.
De una forma diferente, de otro modo, nunca igual al de otra gente.
Respetando tus espacios.
Yani kwani bado unanilaumu bado? Wewe ulikuwa atakaje nikupe hongera?
What? Yani Kate, wewe ndo sababu kwa nini Badi iko asylum? Nilidhani watoto unawapenda Kate.
Kwa ufupi tuseme wale watoto wananitesa wakiwa pale.
Dingo.
Wapi?
Mwanangu Dingo.
Watoto wetu sio?
Umewasahau ama wajitia hamnazo?
Hapana. Tunaenda wapi?
Supposed to be a surprise. Wewe jitayarishe tutoke.
Ketu wabadilika.
Maana sipendi kuuliza maswali about my clients. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Your tone, babe. Umekasirishwa na nini aso?
And welcome back. You're still joined by Wakili Kenneth Amondi and of course Daktari Rotich here, who is a political governance expert and a political analyst as well. Gentlemen, before we went on a break, we just talked about the issue of the constitutionality now. Let's talk about the issue of the political implication. And before that, the Attorney General is contemplating to go to the Supreme Court to challenge some issues there. One, is he acting as an individual? Is he acting on behalf of his client, who is the president? And what are some of the chances of this case now sailing through at the Supreme Court?
Let me start by saying that part of the respondents, insofar as the petition was concerned, the initial petition was the Office of the Attorney General, which we know plays a critical role insofar as the whole of these processes are concerned. So that the Attorney General was in that proceeding, I mean, AG is in that proceeding as one of the parties. In respect of the grounds of appeal that the Attorney General has preferred, let me start by saying, and I'd actually said it earlier, that as an individual, I know the Attorney General finds himself in a very precarious position. And really, he ought to vindicate himself, because there are a lot of consequences going forward. Like I said, we have the question of the coming elections, the processes that the IBC has so far undertaken, and the constitutionality of those processes going forward towards the election 2022, and even the potential of such issues arising during the, an impending presidential election petition. So that on those grounds alone, even forgetting about the merits or otherwise of the appeal, I think those are some of the things that would motivate the Attorney General to appeal. From a personal perspective, and given my reading of that particular judgment, I really do not see much light in the end of the day insofar as the appeal is concerned. And my advice would be that the Attorney General would rather engage more energy in ensuring that we have a proper legal framework for carrying out a referendum, in also ensuring that in the processes that have been initiated so far by members of Parliament, because it is true that there are certain provisions, certain proposals within the BBI document that can very easily be shepherded through parliamentary initiative, and some may not even need a referendum. So that within the context of Parliament, and given the majority that is currently enjoyed between the handshake parties affiliated to the handshake partners.
But then, Daktari, the question, even as the AG is now contemplating to go to the Supreme Court, he says that chances of the whole document sailing through at the Supreme Court is somehow narrow. The question is now, what is the political implication?
I think AG has been guiding the process of the constitutional amendment bill all this time long. He's been the chief advisor to in the process. And in this case, I think he should generally accept that he has lost this one. But going forward, he has to go to the drawing board, be involving in his mind setting, because we are heading for an election. And he's the center of everything. He has to advise the process so that we will have a credible election come 2022. So we have not lost yet, because we have a constitution in place. We have the 2010 constitution, which is quite perfect. Yes, we have not been able to improve, and we need to accept. The most important thing, Olo, is to accept that, to accept first that we have lost, because going back to the Supreme Court to challenge the whole thing, it is a very frustrating kind of process, which of course he may not be sure of the verdict. And in this case, I would wish he relaxes, and then oversee other jurisdictions that will make this country move forward, and instead of putting himself in that precarious situation. But as far as our politics is concerned,
because right now the legal aspect is now down.
It is settled. We know where it is now. Now then, when we talk about whether it was won by the several, the presidential or aspirants, I can say all of them actually lost an opportunity.
How?
Because in this case, in this country, although no single presidential candidate can win without a coalition. And you have heard of all these places. You've heard of Mount Kenya, that we can only change you when we have a share. We need to have a say in that government. We need to form that government. If you have to involve all these people in forming the government, I'm not only talking Mount Kenya, I'm talking about the Republic of Kenya. The stakeholders in the political process, they want to be the one being in the government. And they cannot be in the government if they are not part of those who, because if we had if PPI would have succeeded, we were going to have the position of the Prime Minister, we were going to have the President on the other side, we were going to have the Deputy President, we were going to have the 2 deputies of the Prime Minister, and of course the whole structure was accommodative.
And on the other hand, some of the positions were going to be abolished.
But especially for those, because they were saying that now with the ministers, they were going to get, but that it doesn't sound much. Because when you talk about sharing positions, as some of these, I don't want to use that term. I mean, at the national level, where we have the position of the Prime Minister, where we have the position of the 2 deputy prime ministers and the President, you see, these are the key positions in the government. These are the driving organs of the government itself. So if you have all your affiliation or coalitions being in the whole team, it would be seen as the all-inclusive in that sense. And of course, you don't forget that we were going to have an official opposition, whereby that office also is fully fledged in everything that it needs as a political, office that is putting the government in checks and balance. So in this case, as to whether they lost it or not, I can pronounce that all these guys lost.
Oh, Wakili, that sounds again so harsh to the political elite. All these guys have lost. So does it mean that 2022 we are going to go the same election with the same constitution as it is, where we have got the president, the deputy president, and the cabinet?
From where we are now, chances are likely, from a legal standpoint and given the remaining time, that we shall be heading to the next elections under the current dispensation. Because the only other way, because I've seen some of those proposals in the newspaper, that the parliamentarians intend to bring in through the parliamentary initiative. But let me say this. In as much as members of parliament have got that option of initiating a constitutional amendment process through parliament, but still, if you look at that provision of Article 255, it is expressed that there are certain entrenched provisions that if that parliamentary initiative intend to amend, then it shall behove the president, upon assenting to that bill that shall emanate from the House, to send it to the IBC for purposes of a referendum. And my thinking is that, my reading of the Constitution is that one of the clauses in the Constitution that would be affected is that which touches on the, altering of the executive structure of the government. Because you see, basically, if you were to do that, then you would be interfering with what I would say, and I think it's Justice Musinga who captured it well, will be, as we stand, we have a pure presidential system.
Yeah, it is.
So that if we are to introduce the office of the Prime Minister, Deputy, and ABCD, then we are going back to a parliamentary system of government. So that if you were to craft a change that will bring that sort of a change, then the same will have to go to the public through a referendum. So whichsoever way, if we were to have an alteration of the structure of the national government as it stands, that cannot happen before we head to a referendum. However, and I think then that is where the side of the coalition that may have the support of the president may have an edge. But now that is not law, that is now politics. Where the side of the coalition that may have the support of the president may have an edge. Remember that within the current constitutional dispensation and the executive powers that are enjoyed by the president, it is possible that, you know, he can craft certain positions, so long as it does not fundamentally alter the executive structure
of the executive.
Yeah, so that given some of the rumors that we had in the press that the president actually intended to have some, you know, the persons that he intended to support to have a government, some semblance of a government pre-2022.
Right.
Yeah, then in a way that can act as, you know, a plus for the persons who will then can then be said to be in the side of the president, other than the persons who will be moving as against the president, because then people will, I mean, your co-supporters will just have to trust.
Exactly.
If you win, then you'll give us ABCD.
Dr. Most of the politicians are now going to start scrambling for those positions, because look at it this way: had BBI passed, the positions are going to be created for the expanded executive and what have you. But then now, it's all done. So what are we likely to see in terms of coalitions? Because we only have, as it is, from the way Wakili is saying, as it is, if at all nothing is done, then we are going to go to the next general election under the current dispensation of the constitution. But then now the question is, so what next to the politicians?
I think looking by even the current scenario, although Ruto don't seem to have entertained coalitions as so far. But of course, what we are saying, as people who can analyze the politics in Kenya, you have to have a coalition for you to have a good win, or rather win. But in this case, there is a lot of confusion in the political realm as we are talking to, as it is now, because most of the politicians who are now eyeing to recover their seats back, they are eyeing the winning team. Who is a presidential candidate who is likely to win? Because even when you look at today's newspaper, new poll, Ruto leads but can't win round 1. Because this paper seems to be campaigning for Ruto. In this case, if he is winning, yes, he is winning as per the current ratings. But for a politician who want to regain his seat, give away about what Kenyans will get. It is actually a personal survival. This is actually the time of political survival. I want to be in the next government. I want to see the president who is like, I mean, a presidential candidate who is likely to win, and I attach myself to that person. So that wave is there. And in the few months to the elections, although we are yet to see a mass movement, either going to, because now that we are seeing there are two main contenders. Yes, when Raila was in Nyanza, he shaded well that he will compete, will compete with Ruto. That is what he opened up. That means, and he also said he has found a strategy to climb to the mountain. Climbing to the mountain, that means seeking the foots of Mount Kenya. So in this case, as much as he has not declared as a presidential candidate, there are all signs that he is for it. And Kenyans are watching. And they have also given their own direction that we are going to have two main contenders come 2022. Wajana mambo, hii mambo ya coalition, it will rally behind
but even as we say about that, in the history of this country, there is no politician has ever made it to the presidential seat without a coalition.
Of course, yes. And that's why I'm telling you, Olo, as much as we have not seen in some quarters that they have not opened up, like the deputy president side, I think that is going by what is ahead of us. He has to embrace the mode itself, because it is the only mode that can enable him to win. And in this case, we have two presidential contenders come 2022. That is Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the Deputy President, His Excellency the Deputy President. So in this case, people will now move in all directions. Some will move to Raila's followers, some will move to Ruto's, and as we move in 3 months' time, it will be, they will have shaped up and will show the direction where things go. But majority of the members of parliament, they are eyeing those presidential candidates who have a high possibility of winning, and they will rush there.
But we all know that politics is a game.
Dynamic. It's
dynamic. It's a game of changes and all that. Wakili, the question is, they are planning to go to parliament.
Yes.
And according to the paper here, they have got 52 clauses, BBI, 52 clauses that they are planning to table in Parliament. Let me just give you a rundown. Key proposals MPs want to pass through the House is increasing constituencies from 210 to 360. Protection of 26 constituencies that didn't meet the population criteria in 2012. We have nomination of presidential candidate and their running mates to parliament, and after a general election, we have got elected legislators in counties and national government be made members of cabinet. And perhaps it goes down there until the last one, increase of the allocation to counties to at least 35% of national revenue. What are the chances of these 52 BBI clauses passing in Parliament?
Like I said, we need to go back to Article 255. And then the question that we ought to ask ourselves is that amongst the proposals that are being fronted, which ones of these proposals would need, which of these proposals are such that insofar as we get the requisite numbers from Parliament, the President assents, then they become law? And which ones, are there some amongst these proposals which, notwithstanding the fact that they shall have been passed by Parliament, they still would need to go for a referendum? I think that would be the question. And you realize that, and I think some I can just flag off at the very first instance. For example, the ones on the IEBC, I think those ones, because they would go to, they may encroach on the role of the IEBC. So to that extent, even if parliamentarians agree and pass, but the next they'll need a further sanction through a referendum process. There is the question of having presidential candidates, becoming members of Parliament. I also think that may fall within the same category, because remember, the system that we are approaching, we have now, like Justice Musinga put it clearly, is a pure presidential system. You decide you want to be president, and you forget about Parliament. So either you are a president, that is the executive, or you are in Parliament, which is the legislature. We cannot fundamentally alter that, because that will go to the root, to the basic structure, and it will have to go to the referendum. Otherwise, such provisions as CDF, in increasing the disbursements to the counties by to 35%, the question of bringing the World Development Fund, those ones can pass.
That one can pass.
Yes.
Even we are coming to a close to the show. The question is this a precursor to 2022? What we should expect, or is too early to preempt?
As you said, although that politics is quite dynamic, and but we have come for almost 4 years in politicking. And the direction of things may not change so much in the near future. Because if we were a country whereby we were respecting the law about politics, that politics, we have to play politics when the right time comes, we would be thinking about those big changes. But as it is, we are a country that we have been politicking year come, year go. Even we started after the last election. So the way we are moving forward, there is nothing much that can change. What we are hoping that ahead there, if there will be any changes, it is about this coalition, knowing who has gone to the other side, who has gone to the other side. So in this case, that one now will determine how, the maturity of those who will actually move from to the 8 side. So in this case, 2022, as it is now, the shapes are getting created, or rather they are shaping up. And in 2 months, 3 months from now, we'll have a direction. And it is going to be a different election. Because you find a law, Deputy President and Right Honorable Raila were two friends who were together. These are guys who knows one another. So this actually a very powerful competition of wits. People who knows one another. They have worked together. So in this case, but either way, we expect come 2022.
All right, gentlemen, allow us to stop at that particular point. The discussion is going to be quite interesting from now moving forward, because as I said, the political temperature is going to, it's going to be on a different temperature, because we expect now politicians to take different grounds moving towards 2022. Thank you so much. We've been talking to Wakili, that is Kenneth Amondi, who is an advocate of the High Court, as well as Dr. Rotich, who is also a political commentator and political analyst as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
As well, viewer, thank you so much for your valid company. We're taking a break, but we're not yet done. We'll be back with more after this.
kwani bado unanilaumu bado? Wewe ulikuwa atakaje nikupe hongera?
What? Yaani Kate, wewe ndo sababu kwa nini Buddy iko asylum? Nilidhani watoto unawapenda Kate.
Kwa ufupi tuseme wala tu wananitatiza wakiwa pale.
Dingo.
Wapi?
Mwanangu Dingo.
Watoto wetu sio?
Umewasahau ama wajitia mnazo?
Hapana. Tunaenda wapi?
Supposed to be a surprise. Wewe jitayarishe tutoke.
I'm excited. Oh really? Why are you getting worked up? Mbona nikikuuliza kuhusu Kate wabadilika?
Maana sipendi kuuliza maswali about my clients. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Your tone, babe. Umekasirishwa na nini aso?
Get the VIP access to the best shows on KBC Channel 1. We have something different, something special to spice you up. Get ready for new, exciting and captivating dramas. Movies.
Love the smell.
Comedy.
I went to the purpose.
News, sports and so much more. Do the things that make you happy on KBC Channel 1.
Timbi na Timbelio.
Mambo vipi watu wangu? Mama, karibu sana, karibu. Bildad kama kawaida. Mama. Okay. G-Cliff inamaanisha music kabisa. Au sio? Mama. Risan Romeo. Wewe ndio mshikaji pale peke yako ama kuna baadhi ya wasanii wengine ndugu yangu?
Mimi nafanya kazi hapo kama msanii pekee.
Pamoja tunafikisha nambari.
Inomba usiwe mkali sana ukiziwi waro. Mama usiwe mkali sana itikero inakuita. Hello, hello, yeah.
All right, welcome back to the program, and this is actually what we were focusing on today, simply because, like I mentioned earlier, there's still some ongoing works on phase 3 of construction of Ngong Road, and I had mentioned, rather I had talked about February, at the time in which Kura had talked about when this completion was supposed to be done, but just to clarify, it's not February. They had actually talked about May, so it meant that from around May or in between that month, the third phase, which is from Karen all the way from Dagoretti all the way to Karen, was supposed to be complete, but that hasn't happened. They didn't quite put a specific reason per se, but we know over time, even when phase 1 and phase 2 was being constructed, one of the major reasons as to why perhaps most of this project would stall, especially along this route, is because of the small scale as well as medium scale traders who would encroach on this section, what we call the unmotorized areas or the unmotorized transport system areas, which is inclusive of pedestrian walkways as well as cyclist lanes. For the longest time, that has been a biggest deterrent for at least these roads to meet that specific time in which the construction is supposed to be complete. So at least, but as of now, this is perhaps how the section looks like. Not so bad. What is still remaining on this phase 3 from in between those areas is actually that non-motorized transport system. And also just to mention, In as much as also they will be putting that into place, that is pedestrian walkways as well as cyclist lanes, it's very important for me to also mention that what had been happening along this route, this is actually from phase 1, that is from Kenya National Library all the way up until phase 3, actually, which is cut into 3 areas, phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. What they were doing along this route was just expanding from a single to a dual carriage road. And also what phase 3 will entail, since that is what we're looking at and talking about today, is that in as much as they're expanding it from a single to a dual carriage way, in as much as they are putting into place the non-motorized transport system, also the way in which this road has been sectioned or cut out is to also provide for what we call the bus rapid transit system. We have seen that also taking shape very quickly, or rather in a slow mode along Thika Superhighway, and much of why this is happening is just reduced on the traffic flow and traffic congestion on most of these major roads. That BRT hasn't yet started on this particular route, but the way in which they are expanding it is to also at least provide for that construction when that will begin taking shape along this particular route. And also what will be inclusive, in as much as we have the NMT there and also BRT will begin taking shape in perhaps not too long, also what will be inclusive on this section or phase 3 of Ngong Road will be 5 footbridges. Now, this is unlike what we have on phase 1 and phase 2, because the whole section of entire phase 1 to phase 2, which is from Kenya National Library up until Dagoretti corner there, what we have on those two sections is just 3 footbridges along designated areas. One is to be at Coptic Hospital, the other one is to be at Kenyatta National Hospital, then there was also a third one. Now on this just phase 3, there will be 5 of them just along that particular section. Also installation of traffic lights as well as traffic signals will be inclusive of this project. So perhaps this is why it might have taken a bit of time, because there's a lot of things that will also be inclusive of just that expansion process. So very quickly, before we get to wrap up, a quick look on the traffic flow perhaps along that area, and maybe very, very fast we can just see how, or perhaps even begin from the Prestige Plaza, given it's one of those busy areas, oftentimes heavy kind of traffic along that particular route, and just try and see how it is looking like as of now. You can remember that earlier on there was heavy kind of traffic around that area, especially on that lane, particular lane as you come to the city center. But it looks like right now things have changed, so we want to look at alternative routes at least now, but perhaps we need not to do that, because right now not so bad, moving at a very, very swift and fast pace. Now just as we bring it to a close, this actually will remain one of those key areas as well as key roads up until that construction is complete and opened up to the public. We have also seen over time good number of roads which had been earmarked for construction, just a bit that construction delay, and this was also largely due to COVID-19, simply because when there was that closure, it resulted to most of these materials being shipped to the country not having to take place. So also that has been a very good reason as why we've seen at least some projects stalling here and there. On this particular one though, they haven't really quite put a specific date again, because they had talked about May on this particular phase, but that didn't happen because of those reasons that I've just mentioned to you. They haven't quite put again another new specific date, and this is why I had said, and I'm still saying rather, that this will remain again a key road focus up until we see that construction process of phase 3 complete and opened up to the public, and also up until we see those footbridges installed on those various designated areas along phase 1 and phase 2, and again also up until we see that BRT beginning to take shape along this route. So clearly it just goes to show you that perhaps Ngong Road will remain again a key road focus up until we see all these projects actually coming to fruition. But at least as of now, this is how it's looking like on the roads this morning.
Thank you, Doreen, for that. Always keeping us up to date in terms of what we need to know about our roads this morning. Traffic Marshal A1, and that ushers us into this family conversation for today. And as mentioned earlier on, this is a sensitive discussion for that matter. We welcome you to be part of this, but just to put a disclaimer, this discussion is not meant to discriminate or to be a point of reference when it comes to some of these issues that we're going to be discussing. This is meant to be an informative session, and this is all about domestic violence in line with sexual and gender-based violence. This is something that in the past year or so has been catalyzed by up to 92% as per what statistics have had to indicate. And today this is what we want to talk about: domestic violence in the Kenyan space. It is something that so many people have experienced in silence, but only recently we have seen more and more cases being reported around domestic violence. Now, according to statistics, 40% of married women have reported domestic violence, and a further collectively 62% of domestic violence cases are usually perpetrated by the partner that the victim is reporting, the partner they are currently with, or an immediate ex-partner. Why is this the situation? That is what we want to understand today. And with me in studio, we have two women. I'll start with the lady to my immediate left. She is Anastasia Kehuaga, who is a marriage counseling psychologist. Good morning, Daktari.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us again.
Yes.
We always appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you once again. My name is Anastasia Kehuaga. I'm a counselor psychologist. I'm also married, and I'm also a pastor.
We'll be tapping into all those hats today. And of course, to my extreme left, we also have Joanne Aluse, who is a teacher by profession, and she has willingly been accepted to be part of this conversation to share with us her journey, given she has been in such a situation before. Good morning, Joanne.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being brave enough and allowing us to have you here on the show.
Thank you so much.
All right. Now, again, questions, comments, clarifications, anything in regards to this conversation, we welcome you to be with us rather. Use the hashtag Good Morning Kenya at KBC Channel 1 is the official station handle. My handle is Jane Wamboi across all the social media platforms. Doc, are you on the socials?
Yes.
How can our viewers get to interact with
you? My social media is Equip Destiny Anastasia Kehuaga. I also have a Twitter handle also called Anastasia Kehuaga Equip Destiny.
All right.
And I am also in Instagram, Anastasia Kehuaga Equip Destinies.
All right.
Yes.
Do you have a social handle you'd like to share?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm on Facebook, and I'm Joanna Luce. And on Instagram, still Joanna Luce.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Joanne Luce is how you can be able to interact with her on a personal level. Now, let's just start by getting to hear from you, Joanne, to sort of set the foundation for this discussion. Domestic violence is something that, for most, if you haven't interacted with it, you might not really understand what it entails. But tell us a bit about your experience in such a space.
Yeah, the way you have heard, I was married for around 14 years. I was just about to go for 15th year, but in most cases I had a marriage that was that had ups and downs, and in most cases we used to have this domestic violence on a regular basis, and sometimes we go for counseling with the parents, we go for counseling with the pastors, because I was married to a pastor, and in most cases these things never used to work so well for us until the latter, when I decided to move out of marriage. What happened on that eve night, I remember that day I was very tired coming from school, and when I came back home I was so tired, and I decided to go do my domestic work as usual. And as I did them in the evening, it was around 7 when the man that was came to the house. And when he came to the house, he knocked at the door using his feet, And I realized that there must be something wrong. It wasn't normal. Okay, on a normal day, he knocked the door using his hand. But on a day that means there is something wrong, he used to knock the door using his feet. And I decided, okay, because he has knocked using his feet, I'm not going to open the door. I sent my younger daughter to go and open the door. And when the daughter opened the door, he came in and slept on the couch. And coming from the kitchen, I went, talked to him, and because we were making some supper, he never used to take rice and green grams in the evening. He preferred taking ugali and some stuff more than taking rice. So I asked him for only 50 shillings, and he told me that he had already pre-warned me of not asking him for money to use it for domestic use. Yeah. So when he told me not to ask him, I decided to go out. And then when I went out, I remembered I had some money on my phone. I went to the M-Pesa agent, and the M-Pesa agent gave me 2,000 shillings. 2,000 shillings note. And when he gave me the 2,000 shillings note, I came back to the shop where I was to buy the flour. And when I was standing there, the shopkeeper didn't have change. So the shopkeeper went round looking for change. So in that, during that time, I took some time at the shop. And when I came back, that was the first mistake that I had done. That he is in the house and I've taken long outside. So I came in, prepared food for him. I had bought milk. And he took the milk, gave it to the children, and he only took ugali with the vegetables. And then he went to sleep. After sleeping, I had carried liquid soap. So I decided to make the soap, and the soap was too foamy, and the water, the measurement that I had put was too little. So I decided that the foam should go down so that I may add more water. And when I did that, as I was waiting, he came back from the bedroom and he banged the bedroom door. So I woke up from the seat where I was, picked the phone on my chair where I was, and tried to press it so that I may know what was the time. And when I pressed it, that was the second mistake. So I prepared myself and went back to bed. As I was on the bed, that is when he picked me up using my night dress and told me, you have to tell me, where were you during the time you went to the shop? And then secondly, I'm sleeping and you are chatting with the people on phone. So I decided, I told him, no, kuja pole pole. I thought it was just a joke. So the man jumped out of the bed, went, picked the scissors, and he wanted to stab me. So what helped me during that night is the net, because we had put the net on our bed around it. So when he was trying to pull the net, and I was busy trying to press the net so that it may not open up for him to stab me. So in that process I was yelling. Then my daughter came from the bedroom. That's when she came and tried to knock at the door, telling him that he will not kill the mother, he's not ready, she's not ready to remain an orphan. That is how he started now hitting me on the wall, trying to hit me hard. And my mandible jawbone was broken, and my face was swollen all over, and I had to go to the hospital at Nairobi Hospital. I was referred by our sister Diana Kamande. I called her and told her what I had gone through. So she referred me to another doctor in Nairobi Hospital. That is where I was taken, and I had to go for a series of counseling and a series of psychological help and all that. But it wasn't good from the word go, because we had issues from the word go. And I remember there are times that I had to go spend nights at his place, spend at his mother's place, spend a night in my parents' place. I remember there is a night that I woke out naked, and I had to wear wet clothes on my way, and I had to travel with wet clothes back to the rural area. So that was part of my journey.
Wow. Again, this is why I say you might not really understand the extent to which domestic violence really manifests itself until you're in such a situation. But now let me come to you, Doc. You know, we talk about domestic violence, and again, for some, we might not understand until, unfortunately, you get to experience it. But from a medical standing, what does domestic violence really capture?
Yes, thank you very much, Wamboi and Joanne. Domestic violence, it's the behavior. It can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be mental, it can also be spiritual. It's happening in the church. It can also a behavior that, like, it's not, you don't get the concept of the person, but you like manipulate them, you also control them. However, some of the things that happens in domestic violence, some of them, they are really triggered by the culture.
Yes.
Others are spiritual, because if you're in the church, you're not supposed to talk about it. How? Like for the case of John.
Yeah.
And then if the culture does not allow, the woman is not supposed to talk. And I'm not saying that domestic violence does not only occur to the women. It's also, men are also affected. Therefore, we are not discriminating, as you said there before. However, the more people who are affected by domestic violence, they're women.
Yes.
Why? Because the vulnerability of a woman. And we are in African culture whereby a woman, the voice of a woman is not really to be heard, but you're supposed to be seen. So therefore, you're supposed to act like it's okay. And sometimes some of the women or some of the people, they get used to violence. Because it's like, I would like to, like Joanne, the way she has said, like the people who get married at the age of 18 early, and there are even people who get married immediately after the adolescent stage, depending on the culture. Yes. These are people who are very young. They don't even understand what is my worth, and therefore you get used to it. As opposed to somebody who is a bit young after 24, whereby I've already realized that this is what I want. I'm entering into this. I am laying down my like in marriage. This, we sit with my husband to be, and we go through premarital counseling, and I spell out my expectation. I also let them know, because even Kalia is making people to go through domestic violence because I'm above my husband, and because of the egoistic nature of men, they simply, I'm sorry to say this, they simply don't want to swallow their ego. It doesn't shock anyway, but they don't want to swallow their ego to say that you're going to work and you're the one earning more than the man, and instead of coming to the table and talking about it and dialogue about it, they feel like they are threatened. And because of that coward nature of human being, they feel the threat is too much, and sometimes they may think like, when I go out there and they remain behind, maybe I am being admired by other men, or something might be transpiring, and because of that insecurity, it can also cause domestic violence, and therefore it cuts across. When you are being abused, the abuse, as in somebody is insulting you every day, sometimes some of the young ladies or some women tend to think that whatever a man tells me, that is I perceive myself as the same, and my image is connected to that. Also in domestic violence, we have abusers and we have a cycle of abuse.
Okay.
And the cycle of abuse, there is a stage we call honeymoon stage, whereby things are okay, they will bring me flowers and you're taken for a treat. Then the tension starts building up. That is a cycle of abuse. Attention starts building up, then there is explosion. Things are not working out, and then you're abused. There is that stabbing, all that. And then after that, because abusers, they are very wise. They are enticing, they are charming, they again come back to you. You again go back to the cycle of honeymoon.
So it's a vicious cycle that keeps going round and round. Once it's complete, there's a sort of plateau period, and then it starts all over again. Now, let me come to you, Joanne. Is this something that you can say is actually a fact, something that you can say this is actually what was happening during that 14-year period you were in that relationship?
Yeah, like our sister Anastasia has just said, that's very true, because most of the time when we had issues of domestic violence, that is when we'll go back to that cycle where she's saying the honeymoon stage. And everybody that sees us, because we would walk around the village and we are all happy, and everybody would admire and say, this is the best family, you know. It happens, and then he sues the SU, and it's like there is nothing that has happened. It's like everything is okay. I remember there are times that we would go for the counseling, or we would go to ask some people for help, and immediately we ask people for help, like our best couple. Our best couple used to work so much. There are times that he would even sleep in our house together with the wife. There are several nights they've come, and immediately they come, he talks so nicely, and he pretends, and he says that he will never again do that. And the following day you find that we are now okay. It's like there is nothing that happened yesterday, and people would see our marriage was like it was one of the best. But the truth is, behind the bars, I was really affected. The second thing that she's talking about, the cultural issue. I'm a firstborn, and my mother used to tell me in most cases that firstborns don't leave their marriages. If you leave your marriage, it's like all the siblings.
And a curse that will follow the family.
So in most cases, I would persevere in this marriage because of that. The third thing is she's talking about the spiritual aspect of it.
And you had mentioned he was a pastor.
Yes, he's a pastor. That's where I'm coming. The spiritual part of it. He's a pastor, and here you are a pastor's wife. You can't just leave your marriage like that, because there are people that you have cancelled that needs more of your assistance. In fact, when members are in problem, they come to you. So most of the time when you are going through this, you don't show up, you don't tell people this is what I'm going through. You will hide everything. But the truth is, inside the marriage, you are really suffering. Nobody knew what I was going through, because most of the time I would hide until I had to cough it out, because I saw my life now was in danger. Because not once nor twice had I been threatened. There is a time that you could say, I'm going to pour paraffin on this house and I'm going to burn all of you, and there were so many threats. But now, because you are a pastor, there are women who would take you for prayers. There are people who would tell you, let's pray over this issue, and then you cover it up and you don't show anybody, you don't tell anybody this is what I've been going through. But inside, behind the closed bars, it was fire. Yes.
Now, let me just bring you in at that point, Doc, and looking at some of the things that she's just said, you know, this verbal threats. And I want us to talk a bit about those signs of an abusive partner that we might not really be alive to, but actually these are telltale signs that further damage if you are somebody's in that situation. And she's just mentioned she's mentioned something about the threats that are being verbally articulated. Is this something that we need to take with the seriousness that it comes with when a partner is threatening to harm you in as much as they haven't actually done it?
I want to say the emotional abuse in violence, it causes a lot of mental issues. And there is something we call gaslighting. And gaslighting is whereby you victimize the victim. You know, the abuser victimizes the victim with the words. Like they will keep on criticizing you, whatever you do. It starts with the meal, it starts with the how, I mean, you work late and all that. Those were the words. The words that are very demeaning, and they criticize you, and you feel almost you're shelved and cocooned. And that way, they also use words to keep your friends away. You know, when the abuser keeps the friends away, you never talk about it. When again, they keep you away from the relatives. I don't know your case, Joanne. They keep you away from the relatives. You're not supposed to be very close to the relatives. Why? Because there is something that is, I'm trying to cover up something. Unfortunately, the person, the victim, never get to know what is happening, because the abuser, it's like, it's a cover up. And this cover up continues.
They're trying to make sure everything is within
and also,
control.
In the church perspective, I'm very honest to say, in the spiritual perspective, people will go ahead using scriptures. Like a wife should be submissive, which is okay. We love the words but it's misused. Because at what point should a woman submit? Even when they're being kicked, even when they're being beaten, and even in the church perspective, I told you I'm a pastor. We share with nobody what I go through. We share, like in counseling, we say that every time I see 10 clients, I am the 10th client, because I need to go for supervision and I need to go for. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen like that in the church. So people will use scripture to maintain you in the violent circumstances, and those scriptures, sometimes they're also mentally, emotionally bringing you down. Also, words like verbal abuse, it's also an emotional abuse, because when somebody tells you, you're pretending because you're working, you're earning more than I am earning, and all that, those are demeaning words. And every time you wake up to go to the place of work and you have those demeaning words, how is your image? Somebody's not taking care of your image. You're coming here, one boy, you're a presenter, and people want an image. The KBC want an image. However, you're hurting from inside. Nobody knows. It's mentally bogging you down. You're mentally being affected. Maybe you had sleepless night. Like you're a teacher, she had sleepless nights. You can imagine. She's the one we are taking the kids to go and take care of them. You can imagine somebody who is already emotionally broken from inside. It's a shell from inside.
So those words are something we need to be very attentive to.
Very true.
They are a sign of domestic violence in one form or the other.
Very true. They're the telltale sign
that you need
that things are not working out.
Now, one thing that I've also just researched is that you find in most situations the perpetrator tends to blame the victim for their actions.
Good.
Is that something that you can say you actually experienced?
Yeah, in most cases that is exactly what happened. That most of the time I am the cause for his action. Yes. Even when I came from the hospital, why did you do this? Why did you cause me to hit you? Because I'm the one who caused him to hit me. Most of the time that is what he did. I want to refer back to what our sister Anastasia has just said. On the issue of separating you from friends, separating you from family members, separating you from congregation. You see, this is a case where we are together with him, and he would make sure that I'm not having other friends apart from him. So he is the one who is closer to me more than any other person. I'm not supposed to go to anybody's place or to any friend's house, because he knows very well that if I go there, then maybe there is something that I would speak about it. I remember there is a time that I could go. My rural area and his rural area is not far, but there is a day that I would go to his place and miss to go to my mother's place. Though I'm the one who has paid the fare to his place, but still I cannot go visit my parents. I remember there is also a day that I had to call my parents from my rural area to meet me in a central place, in a shopping center, where I could just see my mother, and then my mother goes back, which was not very far. And then this sign that she's saying that you find that because you are too close to this person, you are not talking to anybody, this person is going to make sure that now you don't have that circle that you are going to share with.
Okay.
So to me, these things happened, and I saw it wasn't really right the way our sister has just said it.
Now, due to the interest of time, it got to a point where you were able to get out of that situation.
Yes.
And I want to just very briefly, you could tell us what was the situation that enabled you to eventually gather the strength and the courage to pull yourself out of that situation. What steps did you take?
When I was in the hospital.
And how long ago was this, if you are comfortable to share?
Yeah, it was in the year 2015.
Okay.
So when I was in the hospital, I took 2 years, 2 weeks, I mean. And within the 2 weeks, I had counselors, and they started talking to me about what had transpired and how the life has been, to an extent that I've been hit to that extent. And I told them the whole story, how it began, and it was something that it was like a routine, a normal routine to be hit, because not once nor twice was I hit and taken to the hospital. There are times that I would go to Kariobangi, like Premium Hospital, they knew my case, and other hospitals that knew about my case, because I used to go to such hospital. But this time I went to Nairobi Hospital.
That was when you broke your jaw?
Yes, when I broke my jaw. So when I went to Nairobi Hospital, Nairobi Women's Hospital, that is when they started speaking to me. And after speaking to me, they told me I should decide if I am going to stay for the marriage or take care of my children. And they left the puzzle open for me to answer it. So when I was sleeping on the bed, I started thinking about all these things that had happened. So in my mind, I saw the future of my children, and I saw how things have been, because now this issue of violence has become now like a normal routine. It's like something that is happening on a regular basis. So when I came back to the house with that mind, and after counseling, he asked me, in fact I had bandages all over because I was induced for that because of the pain and all that. So I had them on my hands and everywhere. And he stood right before me and he asked me, why did you cause me to do this? And the pain came back to me. And I remembered, instead of him saying sorry, number two, I've been in the hospital for 2 weeks and he hasn't come to visit me, and still he's standing before me. It's like he wants to hit me again, and pain crawled in my heart. I just moved out of the house and went to look for a place where I could sleep. So when I was there, I was called at the children's department to come and see them at Kasarani. So when I went to the children's department, that is where he had reported that I went, and I am the one who was providing for the children, and because I was providing for the children, they should divide what I had by half. Then the officers who were there said that nothing was to be divided because my kids were too young. The last born was 2 years, so they couldn't divide. The younger boy needed me more, so they told him they are not going to say anything about division of anything unless if the boy has grown maturely where he can even make decisions. So that is how, when I saw that he had started moving to offices, I said, let us cool down, because it's like he is not having that heart of forgiving again. So during that time, as I was waiting, he had already married, he already had a family. So that is how I decided not to go back again, because he had already started his life.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Doc, as we also we have very less than 5 minutes to go.
Okay.
When you are looking to leave an abusive relationship, what is the safety plan you need to create in order to ensure that you are going to be safe? Number two, if children are involved, as a mother or the father who's leaving that abusive relationship, you ensure the safety of the children as well, because again, it is your responsibility. Very briefly.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, Joan, for opening up. Number one, you have to be ready to face the consequences, because every choice has a consequences. Unfortunately for this one, you have to use an escape route, and sometimes you call it an escape bag, because you need to take a plan of action, and this one is an immediate plan of action, because it's either you leave when you're dead or you leave when you're alive, which is better. So for her, she escaped. So that was an escape. In fact, I am not sure that you ever took anything. But therefore, be ready to start somewhere. Another something else, please look for social support, because one of the things is that your ties, because of the controlling nature of the abuser, there is a lot of manipulation. The ties, the social ties, they are already disconnected. So you're wondering where to start from. And that is why people are remaining in abuse, because you're wondering, where will I start from? The world is so dark for you, and the night is too long for you and you're wondering, where will I start from? I want to encourage people that you can start from somewhere. There are rescue centers, and it's better when you're getting out in a night dress than when you're getting out of that house in a casket. So I encourage people to seek also for psychological support. There are centers that offer psychological support, and I support Nairobi Women's, whereby seek for psychological support. What does psychological support offers? It opens your inner ears. You're able to see things from a different perspective. You trained, by the way, a monastery saying that the perpetrator, you've already trained the abuser to abuse you, because the more you stay, you get out, you come in, you get out, you come in. It's a cycle.
Even if you go,
yes, you will still come back. And that is why even after she went to the hospital and she came back home, she could still have been abused once again. Why? Because you train people how to treat you. And in this case, she had already been trained, the man has already been trained how to abuse abuse her. And therefore, the escape route is this: please take a plan of action, decide. And we use I use something when I'm doing psychology, when I'm counseling couples, I use something we call the step model. Ensure that you come up with a safe and respectful the step model. Come up, state your problem. This is what I'm going through. I'm under violence. Number 2, the T, you come up with, always explore the pros and cons. If I take this action, what are the consequences? However, it's better you take the action than staying there. Then we go to you also come up with a plan of action, and it's an immediate one. Because if you're dead and all your children are orphaned, and in his case, we're still building a vicious cycle, because even before he healed, he married somebody else. You can imagine the cycle continues. And I'm here to say, let's break the social stigma, because the culture, the church, and the community really stigmatize people when they come out of marriage. However, there are roots of seeking for help. And thank you for bringing such a show whereby you're able to speak to the community about this, that it's okay to talk about your problem. You're not the first, neither are you the last.
Yes, they say there's nothing new under the sun, but there's always solution to a problem. And due to the constraint of time, again, we have to pause at this particular point. But again, this is not a discussion that we can exhaust in this one sitting. Of course, we're going to have subsequent discussions to just talk about this issue that has proven to be a national disaster and one that needs addressing. We have been speaking with Joanne Aluse, who is a teacher by profession, also a willing speaker in regards to this particular discussion, sharing her experience. And we also have Anastasia Kiwaga, who is a counseling psychologist. Thank you so much, ladies, for making time to be with us today.
Thank you.
We look forward to having you again. All right. And on behalf of the crew, we want to wish you a lovely day. Thank you so much for making time to be with us this morning. Be sure to join us again tomorrow right here on Good Morning Kenya for another fantastic edition. I'm Jen Boy. Have a lovely day.